It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show. It is another Monday, and this is Mike Adams filling in for Alex today, who is no doubt still working today because he just never stops working. We've got an incredible lineup of news for you here today. Breaking news on several fronts. We've got some hard-hitting guests joining us, including in the third hour, a U.S. Army medic who was court-martialed for refusing vaccines, but even going through the legal process in the military to have a religious exemption to those vaccines. He was threatened with being fragged, among other things. He's going to join us in the third hour. In the second hour, we're joined by Jon Rappoport from NoMoreFakeNews.com we are going to tear into the breaking news now about the drug companies and the fraud and the bribery and the spiked vaccine test results. We now have evidence, virtually proof at this point, whistleblowers from inside Merck who say that they caught their company spiking the mumps vaccine with animal antibodies to fake the efficacy rate in order to defraud the U.S. government and lie to the FDA. And they say that, in fact, Merck's behavior, according to their allegations, which were filed in a False Claims Act that's now a matter of public record, they say that Merck actually, through their actions, contributed to the spread of infectious disease and thereby allowed them to sell more vaccines because the disease was spreading. Gee, we're vindicated yet again here in the alternative media, which is becoming the new mainstream media, the only truth-telling media left on the planet, it seems. We've got that story coming up in the second hour. Also, here in the first hour, I've got a review of the new video just put out yesterday by Alex Jones and the Infowars crew, Humanity's Greatest Secret. I'm going to talk about that and tell you why that is such a big deal and why the big picture perspective here is so on target to what really matters. We are talking about the future of human civilization. It's why we've got to defeat the tyranny. We've got to defeat the globalists. We've got to defeat the genetic intervention of the future of life on Earth, because the very future of humanity is at stake. And I'll tell you why coming up in the bottom of this first hour. But before then, now some of the breaking news today. Check this out. Well, let's start with the simple stuff, and then we'll get into the more fascinating things. But a poll, the Hill poll, says the majority of Americans now believe Obama has changed the country for the worse. 56% of likely voters, they say, believe Obama's first term has transformed the nation in a negative way. You think? You think? Yeah, maybe. And 35% believe the country has changed for the better. Like, where are these 35%? I'm curious about those people. Do they think we should run more guns into Mexico? Do they think we should destroy more of the Bill of Rights? I mean, how many amendments are remaining before they stamp them all out? Anyway, that's an interesting poll at thehill.com. Here's something interesting. A family was slugged with a carbon tax for the funeral. So while they were grieving for the loss of a loved one, they got slapped with a carbon tax for burying their family member. And it seems like the cemetery here had to apologize because they said, quote, even the dead don't escape the carbon tax. Yeah, nothing certain but death and taxes, and now carbon taxes when you're dead. That's what it's all coming to. Al Gore should be happy. I guess we're all going to keep paying taxes as our bodies decompose and release elements into the atmosphere. We're going to be taxed on that as well. Now, McDonald's is sponsoring the Olympics, which is raising question marks with anyone who knows anything about nutrition and health. Really? You're going to have a high-calorie, high-sodium, fast food, processed food company sponsoring the Olympics, which is supposed to be about elite athletes and peak human performance? That's a strange question. Anyway, got a lot more news coming up, including a story from WorldNet Daily and much more straight ahead here on The Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we will continue. Stay with us. All right, welcome, folks. Mike Adams filling in for Alex Jones. Today, you are on the Alex Jones channel, listening to the tip of the spear of truth-telling news in its worldwide broadcast on this Monday in July. So thank you for joining us. We've got an incredible show lined up for you. Key guests ahead. We've got a lot of evidence that has come out now showing that Merck faked its vaccine studies regarding mumps vaccine, and that according to the whistleblowers at Merck, the company has defrauded the U.S. government and other governments of hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, over the years. We've got that story coming up. We've got, what is that, a drone outside? It's like I hear something coming in. We're being grazed by weird machines out there. I think it's just actually lawn care people. No big deal. We've got Jon Rappoport coming up in that segment. Then we've got a U.S. Army medic who was court-martialed because of his religious exemption for vaccines. And he's going to be joining us by Skype in the third hour to talk about how he was threatened with even being fragged and what he had to go through, the abuse that he had to go through because he just did not want to be injected with an experimental vaccine. And so these stories tie together. We're talking about the big lie of the vaccines and then how it's happening in the military, that these people are being so pressured to undergo the vaccines. In fact, you know, we have another story here about the military. Let me dig this out of the stack because there's just so much here. Here it is. What is this? Was it called the Medal of Honor, the False Valor Act? Is that what it was called? Anyway, the Supreme Court, at the same time that it ruled in favor of Obamacare as a tax, by the way, also ruled that it is a free speech right for any person in America to claim that they are a Medal of Honor winner, that you can't have a law that provides penalties for lying about winning the Medal of Honor. Now this, predictably, is getting a lot of veterans really angry, and I'm with them on that. I think that the Medal of Honor is something that's special, right? I mean, you have to earn that. You don't just, it's not given out at Halloween like candy. This is, and the other military medals are earned by people who put their lives on the line. And then to allow someone else to go out there and just say, oh, I won the Medal of Honor, and I won this, and I won that, and I served here, and I served there. What if those are complete lies? To allow someone to lie about that just basically, it devalues the true value of the medal for those who really earned it, who really put their lives on the line, and all those who would have earned it had they lived through their encounters. So there you go, the Supreme Court saying that it's your free speech right to lie about the Medal of Honor. Isn't that interesting? So you don't have free speech to protest anywhere near the president. You don't have free speech to tell the truth about a nutritional supplement and how it might prevent arthritis or prevent cancer. Oh, you don't have that free speech right, but you do have the free speech right to lie about winning the Medal of Honor. Wow, where's the honor in that? See, that's the thing. That's what's happening in America. The honor is disappearing, and it's okay to lie, but you are punished for telling the truth. That's the real contradiction that is emerging in this culture of total runaway government criminality, the thuggish behavior, the complete deception, the lying, the unethical behavior, the pedophiles at the TSA, and much more. This is what's taking over our country today. But moving on with other news, natural and organic items are grabbing a bigger share in the marketplace. This is interesting because it shows that people are paying attention to what they put in their bodies. Hey, maybe they don't want to get cancer from eating a lot of pesticides. But I got a warning to tell you, my nickname is the Health Ranger. This is the area that I study the most. A lot of the so-called natural claims on products are completely bogus. Not all of them, but the word natural, just so you know, is not regulated by the FDA in any way whatsoever. So anybody can make any product, a snack chip, a soda, even with aspartame in it, and they can claim it's natural. Anybody can claim anything is natural. It's not regulated. So beware of that term. Make sure you read the ingredients and know what you're actually getting. But anyway, the natural and organic grocery sector market is growing very rapidly. Here's something that'll freak you out. You know the highly addictive pain-killing drug OxyContin. You know about this drug. You've heard about all the addicts and all the break-ins in the pharmacies of people trying to steal this drug, and how it can destroy people's lives once they get hooked on the drug and then they need it and they can't get off the drug, and then they go to other transition drugs and their lives are just destroyed. Well, the Wall Street Journal has an article. This was actually from a couple of days ago. I got a printout right here in front of me. The headline, here it is, July 2nd. The headline is OxyContin trial planned for kids, for children. Children as young as 6 years old, 6 to 16, are going to be brought into a clinical trial to study the effects of 2 daily doses of OxyContin on these 6-year-old children who have, quote, moderate to severe pain, who require opioid analgesics. Opioids, yeah, right. So now, okay, let me get this straight. Welcome to America. You don't have the free speech right to tell the truth about nutrition, but we do in the airports sexually molest the children through the TSA agents, and now we're going to put children on highly addictive pain-killing drugs when they're 6 years old, not to mention shooting them up with endless vaccines, which we're going to show later in the show how at least one of those has been completely faked for over 10 years. Faked. We're going to show that. We're going to have a whole segment on that in the second hour here. And then on top of that, they put these kids on psychiatric drugs, the mind-altering psych drugs, the SSRIs, the antidepressants, the psychotropics. Aren't children supposed to be sacred? Isn't life supposed to be sacred? Aren't children supposed to be protected against this kind of exploitation by the drug companies? It is insane that we allow pedophiles to run loose in this country and we allow the drug companies to treat our children like guinea pigs. But that's what's going on. That's okay. Moving on, because I'll get into crazy areas of discussion about that topic. This is in Forbes. Forbes, an article by Larry Bell. You may have already seen this. I think Alex mentioned it yesterday. The UN agreement should have all gun owners up in arms. This is the UN agreement, the Small Arms Treaty. And in this article by Larry Bell, he points out that if this is passed by the UN and then ratified by the U.S. Senate, here's what it's going to mean. Are you ready for this? Here's what it's going to mean. All of you legal, lawful gun owners out there, listen up. It's going to, quote, ban the sale, trade, and private ownership of all semi-automatic weapons. Yeah, semi-autos. That means, you know, you pull the trigger once, you get one shot. All going to be banned. And there's going to be an international gun registry. So if you own a gun, you're supposed to register with the UN. How's that for globalist control? And, oh, they're going to confiscate and destroy all, quote, unauthorized civilian firearms. Well, what are unauthorized firearms? Well, the ones that Obama says you shouldn't have, basically, or the UN says you shouldn't have. Unauthorized firearms would be any firearms that function. You know, it's funny, being here in Austin, Texas, I just laugh at this, at the idea that the UN thinks they're going to roll into Texas and confiscate everybody's guns. That is a pathetic and a hilarious idea at the same time. That is never going to happen. Never going to happen. Just try it. Oh, man, the UN people don't know Texas, let me tell you. All right, moving on. Cell phone radiation. The telecommunications companies do not want you to know the truth about the research between cell phones and radiation. This is up on, is this on Infowars.com right now, guys? Any idea? I think it is. Okay, Infowars.com, check that out. The Daily Caller has a new article today. Formal complaint seeks the disbarment of Eric Holder in D.C. So they're going to try to actually disbar this top attorney in the country. Think about it. This is the guy that is the most powerful attorney in the nation in terms of just rank, you know, constitutional rank. Maybe rank is the right word, but he And yet he's the one who masterminded the gun running into Mexico, a complete violation of law. So there's an effort now to try to disbar him. That's been published at the Daily Caller. And Mike Vanderboen and David Cadria filed a formal complaint with the Washington, D.C. office of Bar Counsel, alleging that Holder had committed, quote, professional misconduct during the congressional investigation into the scandal. Yeah, you think so? Lying to investigators, withholding evidence, conspiring to commit felony acts in order to destroy the rights of people to purchase legal firearms for their own self-defense? Really? Is that professional misconduct? I guess we'll find out. What do we have here? Zero hedge. China shuns U.S. and invests directly in Iran oil fields. So here we have more. This is a strategic question of how China and Iran are forming stronger ties. And by the way, China is doing this all over the world, forming financial and political ties with nations that have key resources that are crucial for the ongoing success of the Chinese economy. If you look at supplies of things like natural gas, petroleum, and even concrete, China's got them. China's got the dibs on those resources, and they're pulling them in, and they're making sure that countries like the United States can't get access to those resources. And at the same time, by the way, China has all the rare earth metals and minerals that are key strategic resources in terms of weapons and guided missiles and telecommunications equipment, all those kinds of things. China has a lock on those too. So watch for that to get very heated in the years ahead. All right, here we go. If you host a Bible study program in your own home, you could be facing 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine. This is what happened to a couple in Arizona, in Phoenix, and he's been sentenced now to 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine for hosting Bible study. Michael Salmon and his wife have been hosting gatherings for 15 to 20 people to discuss the Bible. Now they're going to jail because you can't teach people out of your own home. We'll have a lot more straight ahead. Stay with us here on The Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back with much more. Yeah, we're back on The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the health ranger, filling in today. I'm the editor of naturalnews.com. And wow, we just before the break, we were talking about 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine for hosting a home Bible study in Arizona. Now, this couple was hosting, 15 to 20 people to teach concepts about the Bible, share some food, to discuss their creator and their religion. And now he's being sentenced. Michael Salmon is being sentenced to 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine. Police officers, almost a dozen, raided their home and gathered, quote, evidence of their, quote, crimes, which I assume would have included Bibles. And he was then found guilty of 67 code violations. And now he's going to be ripped away from his family and put in prison for 2 months. And the assistant city prosecutor is asking the court to revoke his probation and convert it into a 2.5-year jail sentence. Boy, that's a real God hater right there, a Bible hater, since he continues to hold worship gatherings on his property despite court orders. Oh, so let me get this straight. If you have a birthday party for your 7-year-old, you don't need permits. You don't need any of that. You can just have a little birthday party. Or if you have friends over for a dinner, you can have 12, 15, 20 people over for a dinner, just a little party. Even a crazy drinking party, you can have 15 to 20 people over as long as you don't make too much noise. And I can't imagine that Bible study was a huge amount of noise. They probably weren't, partying out in the backyard and slugging down vodka. That's probably not what happened in Bible study. And yet they get arrested and raided and now facing 2.5 years in jail. This is insane. This is what America has come to. And regardless of whether you follow the Bible or any particular religion, don't we have a First Amendment right in this country? Don't we have the right, freedom of religion and freedom of expression to just have friends come over to their house and talk about ideas without being raided at gunpoint by a bunch of cops and thrown in prison? Is this what it's come to? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, that story is up on, endoftheamericandream.com. Is it up on Infowars? I hope so. That should be up on Infowars. Maybe it is. Speaking of Infowars, I saw something yesterday that I wanted to just mention. because I did research about this. There's a new sponsor on Infowars that's sponsoring some pinhole glasses. I got to tell you, there is a cover-up behind conventional eye doctors and what's going on there. Now, these pinhole glasses really work. And if you go to Infowars.com, you check them out, you can get these pinhole glasses. They exercise your eyes, and for many people, they really do improve vision. Now, I don't have any financial ties to this. This is an independent review. But here's what I found out when I wrote about this, like, I don't know, 8 months ago or something. The mythology of conventional eye doctors is they say the reason your vision gets blurry is because your eye changes its shape. Yeah, they say your eyeball got longer or shorter. Now, that doesn't make any sense. Is that skull still around here? We could actually show it. But anyway, Alex was using it last week for his documentary on anthropology and so on. But if you look at the human skull, you'll notice that the eye sockets are surrounded by bone. Well, the shape of your eye is not going to change unless your skull changes its shape. The only way your eye can get longer is if your head gets jammed into a trash compactor or something. I mean, seriously, how's your eye going to change shape? Your eye is a gelatinous mass. It takes on the shape of the socket in which it resides. So the reason we get blurry vision for some people, not all types of vision problems, but for many of them, it's because the muscles that change the shape of your eye lens, those muscles actually get weak. And when those muscles get weak, you can't refocus on the proper portion of the back of your eye. Now, you may say, well, why does that get weak? Sorry, I got to turn this off before I get on air. You may say, well, why do your muscles get weak? It's because you're not working them out. So just like if you don't work out your legs and you don't go to the gym and pump weights and you don't work out, you're going to atrophy your muscles. You're going to get weaker. Well, your eye muscles, if you don't live out in the country or somewhere that you're focusing on distant objects and then close-in objects and back and forth, distant and close in, that exercises the muscles that change the shape of your lens. They change the concavity of your lens that help the image focus on the back of your eye. I hope I'm not getting too technical here. But your eyeball needs exercise. That's the bottom line. Anyway, these pinhole glasses actually do exercise your eyes. And for many people, they can recover their vision, eliminate the blurriness, and they never need glasses because of this. So I just wanted to, go on the record and say that's something to check out. And I did an independent review of it, and that's what I found out. So that could save you a lot of money and a lot of hassle. Sure, I'm going to get mail from some eye doctors saying, no, the eyeball changes shape. Whatever. Skull doesn't. Not after you're like 6. Anyway, stay with us. We'll have a lot more straight ahead right here on the Alex Jones Show. A lot more in the segment coming up about the future of humanity. We got a lot of mind-blowing information coming up for you in this segment. This is the Alex Jones Show. Mike Adams filling in for you today. Hope you've enjoyed the show so far, and we're just getting started. Believe me, there's so much more coming up. Your mind is about to be expanded beyond belief, and no substance is required, just information and awareness. That's the best part of it. Now, along those lines, by the way, I don't know if you get a shot of this, guys, but I have on the Infowars desk here, for those of you watching on prisonplanet.tv, I have a salt lick, a mineral lick for cattle. And you can go out and buy this at any animal feed store. I'm going to mention this later. I don't know if you can get a shot of it, whatever. Anyway, it's a trace mineral lick. It's kind of brown colored. Looks like a brick, actually, but it's for animals to consume to get trace minerals. But if you dare prescribe trace minerals to humans, suddenly you're in violation of the FDA. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Why do animals get the nutrition but not humans? Ask yourself that question as you listen in. But the big thing coming up in this segment begins with an amazing documentary that Alex Jones and the Infowars crew put out yesterday after many days, well, many weeks of production and many days of rendering. Here it is. Humanity's, well, there's the shot for those viewing. The trace mineral salt lick. Yeah, good stuff. But here's the you got to see this documentary. It's Humanity's Greatest Secret, Stairway to the Universe. This was put out yesterday by Alex Jones and the Infowars crew. You got to see it. Go to Infowars.com, watch this documentary. I think it's about 20 to 30 minutes, something in that range. This is amazing. This is big, big picture thinking, and if you really want to understand why all of this matters, why we need to defeat tyranny, why we need to expose the globalist agenda, why we need to take a stand against GMOs and stealth viruses and vaccines and domination over the food supply and intellectual property domination over genes and life and seeds and everything. Why do we need to achieve victory in all of this? Watch that documentary, Humanity's Greatest Secret, Stairway to the Universe. Now, what's amazing to me about this, this is almost bizarre. Just a few days before this came out, I put out a video called The God Within, which is also a documentary. And that's available. You can view that right now at divinitynow.com, which is a non-profit, non-commercial website just about expanding consciousness and awareness from a spiritual perspective. And there's so many tie-ins between these two documentaries, you would almost think that we must have sat down and met together to discuss these ideas, but we didn't. What's fascinating is that we're thinking in parallel. Where Infowars is going, we're going also over at Natural News. We're talking about the big, big picture. What is the overarching spiritual victory path to bring us into a place of true awareness of what's going on, true freedom? I'm talking about universal freedom from tyranny. I'm talking about honoring life. I'm talking about acknowledging the existence of a creator of this universe. Those are the kinds of concepts that we are getting into. And here's why this really matters. If you look at the overriding philosophy, or you can say the undercurrent philosophy of the scientific dictatorship that is trying to dominate humanity right now, it is one of what I call a zombie universe. And I'm going to read you some quotes here that will absolutely blow your mind. Because I think most of you listening, you agree that you are a conscious, self-aware individual. You have free will, right? You can decide what to do. You have consciousness. It's self-evident. You can experience it at every moment. You're awake. You're alive, right? And most of you believe there is a creator, a God, an intelligent consciousness, a vastly greater intelligence behind our universe and behind life and the magic and the miracle of life and artistry and everything that we witness that's so beautiful around us. And yet, the scientists, the conventional scientists out there who are dominating the political agenda, the scientific dictatorship, they think there's no consciousness, they think there is no creator, you don't have free will, and you are nothing more than a biological robot. All right, I'm going to read you quotes. This is from Stephen Hawking, who is one of the most widely acclaimed physicists in the realm of conventional physics. And he says, there is no heaven. And that whole story, he says, is a fairy tale for people who are afraid of the dark. And this is in The Guardian. I'm holding the story right in front of me. The Guardian, this was published in May 15th of 2011. There is no heaven. It's a fairy story for people who are afraid of the dark. Now, Stephen Hawking goes on to say, in another book that I researched and wrote about, quote, it's hard to imagine how free will can operate if our behavior is determined by physical law. So it seems we are no more than biological machines, and that free will is just an illusion. That's what he says. He says he regards the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail. There is no heaven or afterlife for broken down computers. That's his point of view. And it's not just Hawking, it's not just people like that. It's also, if you go back, it's Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of DNA. He said that awareness is nothing more than a feeling. He says, quote, that your joys and sorrows, your memories, your sense of personal identity and free will are, in fact, no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. In other words, you're not even human, people. You're not even alive. Now, why does this matter? Because this is the scientific underpinning, the dark, destructive, philosophical foundation from which tyrants can destroy lives and justify it. If they want to commit mass genocide, if they want to kill off 5.8 billion people on the planet and bring it down to just 1 billion people, if they want to use children for vaccine experiments and exploit their bodies, they think it's totally fine. Because they worship a philosophy of the zombie universe. No free will, no creator, nothing is divine, nothing matters. In fact, you're not even alive, you have no free will, you have no consciousness, and therefore, if they torture you, if they abuse you, if they kill you, there is no moral consequence to their actions. You see how dangerous and deadly that is. So for us as info warriors, as truth tellers, as people who wish to aspire to the greatness of human civilization, who wish to protect innocent life, who wish to expand the diversity of life and beauty on this planet, and that's what Alex's documentary gets to, Humanity's Greatest Secret, Stairway of the Universe, and this is what my documentary talks about, the God Within. If we want to achieve this greatness, we have to first respect the existence of consciousness, that we are conscious beings, that we have free will. Now stay with me here. I know this is not run-of-the-mill politics, all right? This is not current events news. You're not going to get this on CNN or even Fox News. This is what is above everything that we are dealing with right here in the battle for freedom and liberty. When you want to achieve victory over tyrants, you have to first have a philosophical foundation that respects and understands and values the sacredness of life on this planet. And that means you have to respect the fact that we have a creator, that the universe has a creator, that we are conscious beings, and therefore, we are responsible for our actions. You see how the philosophy of the zombie universe, the dead universe, the unconscious universe that's pushed by modern physics and those scientists who are mostly just atheists, by the way, that philosophy is one of nothing matters. You're not responsible for your actions. In fact, it's a setup for pre-crime, because they can say that if they predetermine that you're going to act out in a certain way in the future, they can arrest you today under pre-crime because you can't control your actions because you're a biological robot. It's also a get-out-of-jail-free card for criminals who do go out and commit murder and rape and theft and scheme and plot and destroy, which is everybody in Washington these days, it seems. Those people are given a free pass because, again, the scientists say, well, those people aren't responsible for their actions either. They're just acting out like a giant biochemical, neurological pinball machine. It's cause and effect. They have no free will. They have no choice. They couldn't help themselves. So when someone goes out and murders and rapes and steals, they can't help themselves, these scientists would argue, because they have no consciousness and they have no free will. That philosophy, Freds, that is going to lead to the destruction of society. It is the devolution, the erosion of everything that matters in a society that is supposed to achieve greatness. And that's why we have to battle this ignorance at every level, including the spiritual level. So it's not just about let's stand up for our First and Second Amendment rights and Fourth Amendment rights and so on. Even though that element is crucial, it is absolutely important. We also have to, and Alex Jones totally gets this, he's completely on board, he's aligned with this message. We also have to win the spiritual war so that there is an underlying value for life. Otherwise, how are we going to protect the next generation if people don't value the future of life on Earth? How are we going to protect the seed supply if we don't value heirloom seeds and the creation, generation after generation of food provided by the Creator and provided by Mother Nature? How are we going to continue life on Earth if we don't have a philosophy that even values life and consciousness and creation? You see why this matters? So if you look behind every tyrant, every TSA pedophile, every corrupt criminal in Washington, if you look behind them, if you peel away that biology and look at their soul, you're going to find a dark, demonic, destructive, zombie soul that is headed for annihilation, that is headed for total destruction, because that is what they worship. And they want to take as many of you with them as they can. Now, in contrast to that, most of you and myself and others here, if you look at our souls, we are in effect defenders of life, of consciousness. We are working hard every single day and most nights even to work in the protection of these ideas of protecting the innocent, seeking justice, telling the truth, that allowing the emergence of reality to be acknowledged by everyone out there, so that there is no more deception, there is no more destruction, that people are free to live their lives with a sense of liberty and with a sense of spiritual connection to that which is divine, which is all around us, everywhere. That is what we fight for. So don't ever think that when you listen to the Alex Jones show or you read Infowars, don't think it's only about the day-to-day fighting for freedom of speech, fighting for liberty, that's crucial, but there is also a spiritual element behind it, above it, you might say, that imbues the words of the writers and the speakers with a sense of serving that which is the future of humanity, which is honoring life, the sacredness of life, honoring the Creator. And I got to say, too, every day that you have, I don't mean to get preachy here, it's just that this is just flowing right now, but every day that you have left in your life is a gift. It's a gift from your Creator, and that gift is your opportunity to set the record straight for your soul. I mean, most of us believe that our souls are eternal. They exist beyond this particular biological existence, right? I mean, it's written right into Christianity. For one thing, after life, there's a day of reckoning, there is a judgment, your life is reviewed, and you either go to heaven or hell, depending on what you did. Well, even if you don't believe that literally, I believe something like that definitely does happen. There is a reckoning, there is judgment. What you do does matter. There is an accounting for your life. So every day that you have remaining, I beg of you out there, every day of your life that you have remaining is an opportunity to set your karmic record, the record of your soul, into the positive realm. How many people did you help? How many people did you defend? How many innocents did you help protect? Did you mentor a child? Did you spread awareness and awakening? Did you go online and help people awaken to the truth? Did you do those things? Because all of those increase your positive, almost you could call it a karmic score. And or in contrast to that, were you a destructive person? Did you harm people? Did you deceive people? Did you lie consistently and in a harmful way? Did you kill people who shouldn't have been killed? You know, were you a destructive person? That's also written on your karmic record. And when you face that day of reckoning, that day of judgment, it's going to be like a balance sheet. It's like bringing up an Excel spreadsheet. Oh, here's the balance sheet of your life. You did all of these positive things. That's +1, +5, +10. Oh, but then you did all these negative things. -7, -12. I mean, everybody's made mistakes, but can you now make up for them? Can you engage in more good and more positivity than any of the negative mistakes or harm that you might have inadvertently done before you really awakened, before you really realized what was going on? And did you fight against tyranny? Did you fight against the domination agenda, the controllers who are trying to suppress? I mean, think about it. If free will is granted to us by the Creator, then the Creator wants us to express freedom, wants us to express the divine principles of liberty. So any force out there that attempts to impinge upon that liberty, that attempts to disconnect us from that which is divine, which is granted by the Creator, those forces are then by definition evil. So when you stand against that, when you exercise free speech, just by standing up for what is right and what is true, you improve the positive score on your balance sheet. And believe me, that one day when your physical existence is over on this planet and you face that Creator and you look at your balance sheet, your whole life is going to be reviewed out right in front of you like a giant billboard. Oh, here's your life. Let's watch it over again. It's like a movie in fast motion. Let's review what you did. And God help all those people who work for the TSA today. God help them, because they're going to look at their movie and they are going to be ashamed. They're going to be ashamed of what they did and who they harmed, and they sold their soul for a paycheck? Are you kidding me? How cheaply can you compromise your soul? And so many people are selling out today for a paycheck. It is absolutely unconscionable. Now, okay, enough on this. Enough on this. I just hope it resonates with you. I hope you get the seriousness of this. This is not just an info war. This is a spiritual war. And if anything, if you think that the Infowars team is being attacked for telling the truth about Operation Fast and Furious and about spy drones and about all these other things, you just wait until this message of awareness and consciousness and the divine, you just wait till this message really starts getting out, because the attacks will be even stronger against all of us, because they know that this is the key. This is the key. If you understand these fundamental philosophical and spiritual principles, you are unstoppable. Like, for example, did you know your soul is bulletproof? Did you know that? I mean, your soul cannot be harmed by bullets. Only your physical body, which is a small blip of time on this planet in terms of the greater cosmos, your physical body can be harmed, but your soul cannot be harmed. In fact, if you are, let's say, killed standing up for what is right and what is just, defending the lives of innocent children, defending the future of life on our planet, defending humanity. If your physical body is killed for that, so be it. Your soul actually is redeemed through that action if you had the intention of protecting life and protecting that which is sacred. So your soul is bulletproof. They can't hurt it. Your soul is radiation proof. Even the worst accident at Fukushima can't destroy your soul. And that's the beauty of it all. It's there. That's the real you. It's not this hand. It's not this arm. The real you is what you decide to do with your free will, with your heart, with your spirit. That's what matters, and that's why we will be victorious in this fight for freedom and justice for all of us across the cosmos. It's that big. All right. We'll get back to some other topics when we return. Stay with us right here on The Alex Jones Show. Yeah, welcome back to The Alex Jones Show. I was just getting texted during the break. Yeah, a lot of people really liked that segment that we just did. I hope it resonated with you, because it really is. There's a spiritual war going on here. There's a destructive force. There is a demonic, evil force on this planet that we've got to defeat if we hope to have any future whatsoever. So get out to Infowars.com. Watch that documentary, Humanity's Greatest Secret, Stairway to the Universe. That is a massive eye-opener. I strongly endorse the message of that documentary. And if you want to watch my take on it, I just released another documentary 4 days ago. That's at divinitynow.com, which is a site that is about spirituality. It's about the existence of a creator. It is about consciousness. It is about exploring reality. And no doctrine, nothing for sale there. It's just, this is we're fighting for the future of survival of humanity. So I know you're part of that. Join in. All right. This is heavy stuff. If you really understand what we're dealing with here, you can't help but be moved by it. Sorry. All right. We do have the trace mineral salt lick on the desk here. I'm going to talk about that coming up in the next segment. Before that, a couple of lists that are really important I want to run by you here in this segment. Remember the recent power grid failures in D.C. and the Eastern Seaboard? Now, some very important things to learn about this in terms of preparedness. And there are a lot of Infowars sponsors that offer preparedness items, and I really encourage you to check those out because they can be truly life-saving. But check it out. 911 failed in many areas. Cell phones failed their fragile technology. The internet went down in many areas. Netflix, Pinterest, and Instagram were all down. The Amazon cloud that powers them went down. Most people have no clue what to do in an emergency. They were not prepared, and therefore they worsen any crisis because they become a burden on the system. This is a story that I believe this was on Natural News. It may have been posted on Infowars as well. A national grid down situation would be far more complex to repair than the localized grid down that we saw in the Eastern Seaboard. And also, modern cities are built on systems that have little or no redundancy. Think about the things you rely on if you live in a city. You rely on the water supply. You rely on the power, the natural gas, emergency services to keep the order, just to keep the criminals from mugging everybody on the street. Modern cities do not have redundancy in all of those systems, which means a cascading failure can kick in and be very, very deadly very quickly. So, and Mother Nature will humble humanity. That's another message. Now, similar to this, here's another list article. This is on Infowars.com from Michael Snyder at the Economic Collapse. 25 signs the collapse of America is speeding up as society rots from the inside out. And again, if you think about why is society rotting from the inside out, if you look at the underlying philosophy that we talked about in the last segment, it's because the scientific dictatorship believes you're a dead zombie. Literally, they think you have no mind, you have no will, you have no soul. They literally believe that. Anyway, points from this story. Homicides in Chicago are 38% ahead of where they were a year ago. Roaming gangs of youths are causing havoc along the Magnificent Mile in Chicago. A lifeguard in Florida was fired for attempting to save a man that was drowning outside his patrol zone. Oh, how dare you leave your patrol zone and try to save a life. See, this is it. They don't value life. You get it? You get it? That's why they can euthanize people. Time magazine, How to Die, Kill Granny. This is why they don't value life. Thieves are stealing identities and filing fraudulent tax returns to get large refunds that are not owed to them. The Secret Service, well, you know all about the Secret Service and all their scandals. Everything is going down in flames, and we've got to get to a fundamental philosophy of valuing life and creation if we're going to save this. So stay with us. A lot straight ahead on the Alex Jones Show. We have entered the second hour of truth-telling here at Infowars at the studios in Austin, Texas. Mike Adams filling in here for Alex, who I hope is listening today. He hasn't texted me anything yet, so he must be happy with the show. Now, we got a couple more news items to cover here in this short segment. But first, I want to start off with this one. Check this out. NASA has released some new pictures of Mars, and Fox News is reporting this. Big picture on Mars. NASA rover snaps stunning view of red planet. You know what's fascinating? I don't know if you saw these pictures. They were all over the internet yesterday. I took a look at them. Something's different about these pictures. Did you notice it? They have stopped doing the red shifting photoshopping of the Martian sky and the Martian landscape. Now, those of you who know what I'm talking about, you're probably laughing right now because you're like, yeah, that's exactly right. They stopped making it look red. The new pictures don't show a red sky. They show a landscape that looks a lot like Wyoming. I mean, seriously, if you look at the pictures of Mars from the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s, they were all essentially photoshopped or red shifted by NASA before they released them. They were all shown to be really, really red, like it's a really red sky and it's really red soil. Okay, here we go. Some pictures coming up right now for those watching on prisonplanet.tv. The atmosphere in these pictures, it's kind of a purplish gray. The mountains in the distance look like, you know, the Smoky Mountains in the U.S. almost. This is a change. It's a powerful change. No one in the press is talking about this. And for those of you who have looked at the history of NASA, you know that NASA has been very, very reluctant to really tell the truth about, you know, signs of bacterial life on Mars and things like that, evidence of water on Mars or water on the moon, all these kinds of things. So this now, with these pictures coming out, this is a shift. They've taken away the red sky and the red soil. Now they're showing it as a regular landscape that could be from any other planet. It could be from planet Earth. And what I think about this part is just conjecture, but I think that they are prepping the public to announce some kind of discovery of life on Mars. I mean, microbial life. I'm not talking about little green men running around. I'm talking about microbial life, proof of it, but they're trying to prep people for it, so they're releasing these photos of a normal-looking atmosphere on Mars. All right, I want to give a shout-out to WorldNet Daily and Jerome Corsi, and WND.com has put out another story about Obama's missing year at Columbia now being found. This is a great article. I'm not going to go into all the details here, but I just want to say WorldNet Daily and Joseph Farah have done some really amazing reporting on even the birth certificate. Was that WorldNet Daily or was that Newsmax? Anyway, I think that's WorldNet Daily on the birth certificate. And Jerome Corsi, of course, has done amazing research. But if you look at the Social Security number and the birth certificate issues, it's WND, I'm sure. Those are powerful pieces of investigative journalism. Just want to give a shout out to anybody out there who's investigating the truth and actually backing it up with evidence. You know, there's a lot of people on the internet that are just saying whatever, you know, all kinds of weird theories and weird conspiracies and weird attacks on people, but they don't back it up with anything. They don't have any evidence. They don't have any documents, nothing. What I try to do, and I know what Kurt Nimmo does here and Paul Watson and people like Corsi here and many others, we provide the evidence. We provide the documents. So people out there, if you read something on the internet, don't be just sucked in by somebody's words. Anybody can spout words, and there are a lot of really great liars out there, including, you know, in Washington, D.C., very, very effective liars. I mean, just look back at some past presidents and current president, and you have some really good liars. Look for the evidence. What is documented? What can be proven? And we're going to have a lot of evidence coming up right now after this coming break with Jon Rappoport about Merck and the drug manufacturers, vaccine companies, and some of the ways that they are trying to hoodwink us all and our governments at the same time. All that straight ahead on the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. right, welcome back to the second hour of the Alex Jones Show. This is Monday, July 9th, 2012. Mike Adams, the health ranger, sitting in for Alex today. Thank you for continuing with us here. We've got a very powerful segment coming up here right now. Jon Rappoport from NoMoreFakeNews.com joins us, but let me give a quick introduction of what we are talking about. We've got GlaxoSmithKline pleading guilty to criminal fraud and now paying a $3 billion fine. Yeah, with a B, $3 billion fine to settle the criminal and civil charges. We've got two whistleblowers from Merck, two virologists who went public with a False Claims Act claiming that Merck had spiked the results of falsified test data to fabricate a vaccine efficacy rate of 95% in order to keep selling it to the United States government. We've got evidence coming out, a lawsuit also filed against Merck that says that they engaged in a decade-long scheme to falsify and misrepresent the true efficacy of its vaccine, that it tried to conceal the evidence, that it threatened its virologists with going to jail if they spoke out and went to the FDA. The allegations here are just absolutely huge. And then we've got Pfizer being sued by retailers over its anti-competitive scheme. They say that the company has conspired to keep generic versions of cholesterol drugs off the market so that Pfizer can keep selling its nearly $10 billion a year worth of Lipitor without any competition. So all of this is going to be now discussed by none other than Jon Rappoport, one of my favorite guests. He knows his stuff. He joins us now by Skype video. Jon, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Great to be here. Yeah, let's get into the chemical warfare section of the show.
Let's get right into it, man. But let's start with the fact that, number one, you and I and Alex and others who've been talking about this, we are completely vindicated at this point because we've talked about the criminality of Big Pharma, and now here it is. It's a matter of public record now, $3 billion fine for criminal activities that the company has pleaded guilty to.
Yes, it is vindication. And for all those people who have been saying that, you know, we're just a bunch of kooks and we don't know what we're talking about, or we don't have the facts, and we're just anti-something or other, I don't even know what it is, they're wrong and we're right, and that's the way it is. They have been lying. Media have been supporting these drug companies on and on and on and on and on. They don't see the continuing conspiracy of criminal activity on the part of Big Pharma. They don't want to see it, but it's been there for a long time. I've been in touch with mainstream reporters for years, trying to convince them to cover this one aspect or another, and they just shut it out because they know that they won't be able to. They're not allowed to.
Well, they know where their salaries come from. Where media gets its money is largely from the pharmaceutical companies. But look at this, Jon. Even when the False Claims Act came out, that the two whistleblowers from Merck went to the government and said, the government is being defrauded of hundreds of millions of dollars with a false vaccine, a mumps vaccine that doesn't even work at the claimed rate. The government said, we don't want to investigate. They just said, forget it. Let the company keep doing business that way. I mean, the government doesn't even care. We are talking about a deep, deep collusion between government, media, and pharma. What are your thoughts, Jon?
Well, that's what it is, Mike. It's been going on for decades and decades and decades. And they're so far in bed together that they can't get out or separate themselves from each other. Occasionally a scandal erupts, or three of them that we're looking at here, and so they pay a fine. But nobody goes to jail. Nobody's really punished. And let me indicate, as far as GlaxoSmithKline is concerned, you know, they have to pay $3 billion now for criminal actions related to three of their drugs, Paxil, Wellbutrin, and Avandia, hiding the dangers of Avandia and inducing doctors to prescribe Paxil and Wellbutrin for what's called off-label uses. In other words, uses where it could be even more dangerous than where it was before, say for children.
Yeah.
Well, during the period about which this fine covers, the $3 billion. Those 3 drugs made GlaxoSmithKline $27.9 billion.
So $3 billion is just a slap on the wrist. Huh?
You know, and they had already set aside the money to pay the government. Right. They knew this could come down. And so they sat in their corporate boardroom and they said, okay, well, how much could this cost us? I mean, I don't know, $2 billion, $3 billion. All right, let's set it aside so we can pay because, you know, we're making $25, $27 billion off the 3 drugs. What do we care? This is the thinking. And the government goes along with this because the government knows that the $3 billion doesn't even begin to make a dent in Glaxo.
Well, it's like Alex uses this story of a guy robbing a bank and walks away right out of the bank with $1 million in cash, and the police show up. And we caught you robbing the bank. Now pay us $10,000 and you can go free. So the robber takes out 10 grand, hands it to the police, and walks away with $990,000. Man, that's a pretty good day, and that's what Big Pharma does every day.
That's right. That's what they do every day. The government goes along with it. And as you and I have discussed before, you know, the public starts to look at this and they say, wait a minute, is somebody going to be put on trial? Is somebody actually from these companies going to go to jail? Go to jail for 10 years, 15, 20 years? Because this is endangering the public. I mean, these are dangerous drugs and vaccines that we're talking about here. And when these companies lie about the safety of them and the government just looks the other way, somebody's guilty here of a serious crime, but yet no one is ever prosecuted for a criminal offense.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Justice does nothing.
Let me go over some of what GlaxoSmithKline pled guilty to here. Bribing doctors. Bribery, outright bribery of doctors, gave them luxury vacations and lucrative paid speaking gigs, even concert tickets to Madonna concerts apparently was part of was in the documents. It turns out also, this came out, the celebrity doctor, Dr. Drew, had received $275,000 from Glaxo to help promote their antidepressant drugs, apparently. That's being reported. I think that was in the Wall Street Journal. Glaxo fabricated drug safety data, lied to the FDA, defrauded Medicare and Medicaid out of billions of dollars, deceived regulators about the effectiveness of its drugs. It relied on these deceptive practices to earn billions of dollars while selling potentially dangerous drugs to unsuspecting consumers and medical patients. This is just some of what Glaxo is guilty of. And the Wall Street Journal reports, oh yeah, that's about Dr. Drew. $275,000 was billed to Glaxo for, quote, services for Wellbutrin. Services. And then he went on to promote that drug in speaking engagements and I believe on his radio show. Yeah, exactly. But apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, he did not disclose that to his listening audience. So a lot of people getting caught up in this right now, taking money from a company that has now pleaded guilty to criminal behavior.
That's right. That's quite a list of charges that Glaxo has been found guilty of. And when we say fabricating drug safety, what that means is the company is saying, we've done studies on these drugs. They're safe, like Avandia, you know, which was an extremely dangerous drug. Oh, it's safe, no problem. And here are the studies that back it up. So what does that mean? That means that they were lying in the studies. They cooked the data. They fabricated results. They buried results that would be negative to the so-called safety of the drug.
Right.
They cheated in every possible way. And these studies were published in major medical journals so that doctors could read them and say, well, we know that these drugs are good and safe, and so we can prescribe them.
But none of those studies are going to be retracted, though, John, because the fraud has to be allowed to sort of be catapulted into the consciousness of the medical community, right? So, and as you mentioned, nobody's being arrested. Nobody is going to jail over this. Now think about this, John. If you or I went out and sold a product to the government for millions or billions of dollars, and we bribed doctors, and we defrauded the government, and we lied, and we contrived the study results, and we did all that. You think they wouldn't arrest us? Of course they would. We'd be in prison like that. But these drug companies get away with felony crimes, and nobody's held accountable for it. Nobody.
Exactly. I have a statement here from Dr. Marcia Angel, who was the editor for 20 years of the New England Journal of Medicine, which is the most prestigious journal in the world. And when she left, she eventually wrote an article for the New York Review of Books that said, "It is simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that is published, or to rely on the judgment of trusted physicians or authorities." I mean, you know, this is one of the premier people in the world of medical journals, and she's basically saying the system has collapsed. It's
broken. The whole thing's a fraud. If you're taking prescription drugs, if you're taking vaccines, you've been exploited. You've been fooled. All right, we're going to go to break, John, but we'll come back with a lot more on this, including statements from GlaxoSmithKline about how they're now going to be monitored by the government to be more compliant. Yeah, right. Stay with us on the Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back with more. We are exposing Big Pharma's criminality right here on the Alex Jones Show with Jon Rappoport, our guest, and my name's Mike Adams, the fill-in host today for Alex. John, I got to relate a story to you about how this goes on. Now, I'm looking at a BBC article, and it talks about GlaxoSmithKline has been found guilty of paying kickbacks to doctors, and the quote from U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz says, "The sales force of Glaxo bribed physicians to prescribe Glaxo products," those are their drugs, "using every imaginable form of high-priced entertainment, from Hawaii vacations and paying doctors millions of dollars to go on speaking tours to tickets to Madonna concerts." Now, the last time I took a vacation to Hawaii, which must have been 8 years ago, I don't think I've even been on vacation in years, but the last time I was in Hawaii, I was staying at a hotel where there happened to be a continuing medical education course. They're called CMEs. You know about these, John. Many of our listeners may. But every doctor is required to have a certain number of hours of CME, continuing medical education, to keep their state medical license. So the CMEs are sponsored by drug companies. And in this case, I don't remember the drug company name, but the drug company would pay to fly the doctor and their entire family out to a luxury resort in Hawaii. I wasn't even staying at this resort. It was that high end. I was just walking through there and using their pool, actually. That's a funny story. But in any case, I saw this hall of all these doctors walking in, signing their names, and leaving. And I asked one, I said, what are you doing? What is this? They said, "Oh, you know, I'm a physician, and we're here for continuing medical education." And I said, "Well, I saw you just sign your name and you're leaving. What's the deal? What's going on?" And he says, "We don't really have to attend. We just have to sign that we did attend, and then we're pretty much free to go tour Hawaii all day with our families." That's continuing medical education, and it's paid for by the drug companies. It's just one of the forms of bribery that takes place in America. The whole thing is a fraud. John, have you seen anything like that go on firsthand like I did?
Well, what I've seen, I've been told about this by doctors and also ex-salespeople for drug companies. They're called detail men or detail people, and they go into doctor's offices. "I'm from such and such drug company, and here's a bunch of free samples of our drugs, and I want to talk to the doctor," and they set up an appointment, and now the drug rep sits down with the doctor and says, "Look, here's this new drug that we've got, X3. Now, we know that the FDA has only approved it for use in adults. It's not approved for use in children, but of course, you as a doctor legally can prescribe this drug for anybody you want to. And I just want to tell you, you know, off the record, doc, that this drug has been having amazing results with children." So you should feel free to be able to, prescribe this for children. And by the way, and now, the inducements, here's a few tickets to a concert. We're having a conference in the Bahamas next year, and I'm sure that we could do something for you, either as an attendee or maybe even a speaker. And this goes on every day in doctors' offices.
Oh, yeah.
So it isn't just the payoffs, but what the payoffs are for.
Oh, yeah.
To endanger the lives of children by conning doctors who were supposed to be resistant and intelligent and took the Hippocratic Oath.
It's all about getting doctors to prescribe more of the drugs, obviously, and the drug companies actually buy the data of how many of this prescription that doctor prescribed. They have all the spreadsheet, and they know which money to pay out to which doctor. And you know who's also a culprit in this, John, from nomorefakenews.com, by the way, if people want to check out your website, who's also a culprit in this are the doctors themselves. They have said for years, oh, we're not being bribed. No, that's consulting money. That was continuing medical education, even though they didn't even attend the classes. They said, oh, no, that was a speaking fee. Yeah, a $2 million speaking fee. Come on, it's a bribe. They don't care if you speak to anybody. They're just giving you money so you keep prescribing the drug. You doctors out there, you are liars. You are con artists. You are fraudsters for taking this money, and I hope you go to jail for being part of this. I hope they track down everybody who took money from Glaxo and throws them in jail and prosecutes them for accepting bribes.
Well, that's exactly it, because that is another crime, accepting a bribe. So these guys should go to jail.
They should.
And this tells you something about their medical training. We're led to believe that this is the most pristine form possible education in the world. Somewhere along the line, these people are learning to be criminals. The people that are in the doctor's office.
Criminals in training, yeah.
The criminals in training is what they're learning, because they understand the game. You've got to be prescribing the drugs. You've got to be playing the system, within the system. Otherwise, you're out. And of course, Mike, on the other side of this, look at all what we've exposed here in just the last, half hour or so with these three giant drug companies.
Oh, there's more coming up. We're going to break here, John. Sorry to interrupt you. There's more coming up on Merck and what the whistleblowers say was falsified vaccine data coming right up. Well, Alex is off today. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex, and I'm joined now, continuing with Jon Rappoport from nomorefakenews.com. We are discussing the amazing revelations of total runaway criminality in the pharmaceutical industry, with GlaxoSmithKline now pleading guilty to $3 billion. Pleading guilty to felony crimes resulting in $3 billion worth of fines. And now we're going to talk about Merck. But first, I got to say, I love the sense of humor here at Infowars. There's a sign in the studio. I just got to share with you. A sign that says, at least twice weekly, we must do whistleblower interviews for 1 hour. Not complying will result in tasing. Does that apply to me too, guys? Just a technical question. All right, the taser will be brought out later, apparently. Okay, continuing on, if anybody should be tased right now, it's the drug reps and it's the doctors who took bribes from GlaxoSmithKline. How come these people aren't being arrested? Why are they allowed to break the law, to accept bribes, to put our children on drugs, to falsify data, to lie to the FDA? And the government says, we don't even care. We want you to just keep doing it. Why is this allowed to go on? Why the runaway total pharmaceutical corporate fascist government criminality in America today, John? What is happening? How do we stop this?
Well, certainly we stop it by exposing it, because we still have the freedom to not take these drugs.
Yeah, until Obamacare is mandated on everyone, by the way.
Well, that's another question we can get into. I mean, because these companies are going to do quite well under Obamacare. But, as long as we fight for the freedom to either take a drug or not take a drug, that's the bottom line. And the drug companies understand this, believe me. That's why they're going after the natural health industry so heavily. I mean, can you imagine what would happen if, the government has found a company called Oobla D that is selling vitamin C to the public, but it's actually vitamin E. Wow, and it's contaminated, and they're lying about it to health food stores, saying this, that, and the other thing, and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah,
they would have everybody in that nutritional company in jail for 20 years.
Absolutely.
But when Glaxo does it, you pay a $3 billion fine from your war chest of $27 billion, and just go along with business as usual.
No, it's even worse than that, John. When the FTC goes after natural supplement companies, they conduct the raids, they haul the people into court, and they confiscate the customer list, they confiscate the computers, they confiscate the inventory, but they make these companies refund everyone who ever bought that nutritional product in the history of the company. So why doesn't the Department of Justice go to GlaxoSmithKline and say, oh, you got to refund everybody who ever bought your drugs that you deceived us on? Why don't they do that?
Yeah, why don't they? Well, you know, we get into the deeper part of this, Mike, because drugs debilitate people. The overall effect of pharmaceutical drugs is to tranquilize, sedate, dumb down, debilitate, and kill at least 100,000 Americans a year. By statistics, we got the report, Starfield report. What does this do for the powers that be? It completely weakens the people of the United States of America and allows whatever agenda of power and control to be imposed on these people because they can't fight back. I mean, this is, to me, the bottom line. We're not just talking about advertising money. We're not just talking about profits. We're not just talking about, you know, who colludes with who here, but why, as you say, why do these people continue to go free? Why does one attorney general after another pay no attention to this? Because this is a bigger agenda than the U.S. government or even the pharmaceutical companies. This is an agenda of destroying and rotting out the country from the inside, one individual at a time. It's chemical warfare. These are the drugs. And when the country is submitted to that kind of chemical warfare, they can't fight back.
Well, I think you're nailing it. You've really hit the point here that there is an intention to zombify the nation, to dumb down the cognitive function, to disconnect the neurology of the bodies of the people who are going to be the voters and the consumers and the taxpayers. I mean, you're right. You're right. This is why is this criminality allowed to go on? Because it fits the agenda of keeping the entire sheeple population herded into a dumbed down mentality while the global controllers take over the money, take over the economy, take over the food supply, take over the genetic capital of the planet through seed patents and animal patents and all these other things. You nailed it. You're exactly right. It's allowed because it fits the agenda. That's it.
And here's another thing which I've discovered, you know, 30 years of being a reporter. Connections to various mainstream reporters, politicians, I mean, connections meaning I find out things about them. So many of these people are on these drugs themselves, right? Yeah. They're on the tranquilizers. They're on the antidepressants. They're on all of these things. So now for them to turn around and even begin to question what the agenda really is that we're discussing here is impossible because these people are brainwashed into believing that they can't even function without the drugs in their system. Oh, no, so they're slaves. They're captives to Big Pharma themselves.
No, if we lived in a rational society, we should say that no one can be elected to a position of Congress or even the executive branch. They cannot serve in the public interest if they're on psychiatric drugs, for one thing, because those things mess with your head. They are, by definition, mind-altering drugs, psychotropics, antidepressants, everything prescribed by psychiatry. And yet, how many members of Congress are probably on those drugs and statin drugs that sap your energy and that cause early dementia and Alzheimer's? I mean, we are being led by a bunch of drug-harmed legislative and judicial and executive leaders in our country who are not in their right presence of mind, literally.
Absolutely. You know, every time they get up to cast a vote or give a talk on the floor, they should say, "My name is John Smith. I'm the representative from Ohio, and full disclosure, here are the drugs I'm on."
Yeah.
Paxil, and then they put me on Prozac, and they took me on Paxil, and then they said I wasn't really suffering from clinical depression, it was actually bipolar, so now I'm on, Depakote, which, could, of course, kill me tomorrow, but I'm serious. So, by the time they get done, everybody in the country is going to know we're being run by a bunch of completely deranged lunatics.
Well, here's a direct example. This was raised about Supreme Court Justice Roberts, and he being on, was it an anti-seizure medication, I believe?
That's right. Yeah.
And there were questions raised. I think it's legitimate to raise the question: did that affect his judgment? Did he flip-flop because of that? But not just him, and not just that issue, but all of the Supreme Court justices. I remember one of them was on chemotherapy at one point. What about,
which is like saying, oh yeah, we're attacking this justice with chemical warfare that we used in World War I.
Yes.
So, don't expect him to say anything that makes any sense.
I mean, even in the military, isn't there a procedure by which if a commander has lost his presence of mind and is no longer, quote, fit for command, that his subordinates can say, we're relieving you of duty, you're not fit for command? That should be invoked across, all of Washington, D.C. for all the people that are on these drugs that are altering their judgment, altering their memories and their behavior. I mean, we are a nation of druggies.
Absolutely. And Washington, D.C. is the medical drug capital of the world, especially the psychiatric drugs.
Yes.
On and on and on. So they've been infiltrated. If we look at this for what it really is, Mike, it's like chemical warfare. Okay, Washington, D.C. has been infiltrated. All of these people that work in Congress and various federal agencies and so on have been infiltrated by destructive chemicals that are in their systems every single day, every hour of every day. This is warfare. This is a tactic of warfare. And when you finally see it for what it is, then you begin to make sense out of what's happening to this country. Because as we started this with, in any sane country, all of these drug executives and more would be in jail for 20, 30, 50 years by
Absolutely.
now.
Hey, in China, they would be sentenced to death.
Yeah, exactly.
They would just take them out and shoot them in China. That's what they did to the manufacturer that put the melamine in the infant formula. They just executed them. I'm not saying I'm in favor of the death penalty because it's so corrupt, but I'm just saying that China doesn't mess around on those issues. China's obviously very corrupt in its own way, but to your point, you're correct. Why is nothing happening to these people? Check out this statement. This was in the BBC. GlaxoSmithKline said in a statement that it would pay the fines, the $3 billion fines, through, quote, existing cash resources. They have $3 billion just lying around.
Yeah, in the closet. Open the door over there and get out the $3 billion.
Yeah, and it's just a fraction. Oh, and here's the other thing. From this is Mr. Whitty, but I'm not making this up. Andrew Whitty, the chief executive of Glaxo, said, quote, "We have learned from the mistakes that were made." Yeah, you got caught. And, quote, "When necessary, we have removed employees who have engaged in misconduct."
Yeah.
So wait a minute, you defraud the government of hundreds of billions of dollars and somebody just loses a job over it? That's it?
Right.
But the company can keep doing business?
We've learned that when we get caught, we have to pay a fine. So we're going to be more devious now than we were before.
Yes.
I think that's what the statement means. That's what he's saying, basically.
That's what he's saying. But we got to move on to Merck. This is an even bigger, more outrageous issue in many ways. And I know you've already looked into this as well. Check this out. Merck virologist Stephen Crowling and Joan Wolchowski, trying to get that name right, they claimed in a 2010 False Claims Act document, which we've posted. I did a big write-up of this on naturalnews.com. That's on screen right now. And today's article's on Infowars.com as well. According to these virologists, Merck, quote, falsified test data to fabricate a vaccine efficacy rate of 95%. Turns out to be completely false, according to them. They spiked the blood test with animal antibodies in order to artificially inflate the appearance of immune system antibodies. Merck pressured the two virologists to, quote, participate in the fraud and the subsequent cover-up, that they used the falsified trial results to swindle the U.S. government out of hundreds of millions of dollars for a vaccine that does not provide adequate immunization, that they intimidated the scientists, threatened them with having to go to jail unless they stayed silent. And in doing all of this, Merck actually contributed to the spread of the outbreaks of mumps, which is, of course, the very thing that the CDC cites to push everybody to go get more vaccines. So you talk about a grand fraud, total runaway criminal scam. This is what's being described by these former employees. It is incredible. And everybody who went out there and got injected with the mumps vaccine, if this is all true, you got suckered. You got suckered big time. And once again, we were right, John. We were right. Don't get vaccinated. Right. It's a scam.
Completely. And not only were you cheated if you got the vaccine, but you can't sue the government.
Oh, no, they all have complete immunity.
Yeah, the drug companies, government immunity, right?
Yep.
All they can do is just sit there and say, well, we got cheated. Now, people have to understand that when they say that they used animal antibodies, just to give you a gross version of this, it would be like you make a solution in a laboratory in a dish and you say, okay, now we're trying to prove that the vaccine is really effective here, and so we want to see some real action in this liquid, but we don't see any. So obviously we failed, it's no good. So bring that big bowl over there of animal blood.
Yeah.
And just pour it in here and let's see if we can get some foam going. Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, now we can prove that the vaccine is effective. That's basically what they did.
It is outright fabricated fraud. It's almost as if you faked your birth certificate and tried to pass it off as real.
Nobody would ever do that.
Nobody would do that in America. No. But check this out. According to these virologists, Merck's mumps viral strain is 45 years old. Here's the explanation from the complaint. For more than 30 years, Merck has had an exclusive license from the FDA to manufacture and sell the mumps vaccine in the U.S. The FDA first approved it in 1967. It was developed by Dr. Maurice Hilleman. You remember Hilleman? Infowars has played the recordings of him and his crew laughing about all the cancer stealth viruses in the vaccines. At Merck's West Point research facility from the mumps virus that infected his 5-year-old daughter, Geraldine. Merck continues, get this, continues to use this, quote, Geraldine strain of the virus for its vaccine today. That means this mumps viral strain is 45 years old and it's been weakened through multiple generations of what's called passaging to have it prepped for processing into a vaccine. This is a total fraud. If this turns out to be absolutely true, it is a complete scientific fraud at every level. It's unbelievable.
They say all the time, oh, the viruses are mutating, they're changing. We have to completely revamp and vaccines every year in order to keep up with this. But, hold on, in the case of the mumps vaccine, we're quite sure that it's been the same virus without mutations for 45 years, and so we can use my daughter's virus and make the same vaccine over and over again. It's a lot less expensive. Who cares if it doesn't work or if it kills you? That's just the breaks. You can't sue us, so just shut up and take your vaccine.
Yeah, that's it. You got to get down to this. Think about all the doctors and all the so-called skeptics and science people who said, no, these vaccines are all perfectly safe and perfectly effective. It's the best science in the world. It's the gold standard of scientists. We wouldn't lie. We have PhDs. Oh, my God. Now they're all fools. They look like complete fools. I mean, the whole thing was fabricated, according to these two virologists.
They've even gone so far as to say that people like you and me are terrorists, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we must be info terrorists.
We're trying to get people not to take vaccines. And, of course, in doing that, we'll be destroying the entire country. So
yes.
They have the science. I mean, it's rock solid. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, the whole mumps vaccine is a total fraud from the top down? Wait a minute. I think I have to take a vacation.
A medical farce is what I say.
Yeah.
So all of you people out there listening today on this Monday, if you have been vaccinated with MMR or a mumps vaccine made by Merck in the last, 45 years, you need to take a second look at who swindled you into that deal and what may have actually happened to you. Instead of being immune from the mumps, remember, we talked about this. The Institute of Medicine put out a report that said one of the biggest side effects of the mumps vaccine is the mumps.
Correct.
So it's like,
correct. Otherwise,
it's comedy.
Perfectly effective. I mean, aside from getting the mumps vaccine is a miracle. And,
and you could have
it's so ridiculous when you start to pick this whole thing apart.
Oh man!
Right?
Oh man!
It's just, and then on top of this, what happened to Merck was even when they took the big bowl of animal blood, so to speak, and poured it into the dish, the results were still not very good for them.
Right, they had to fake the results a second time.
No, we can't even, that fraud didn't work. So let's just conceal all of the findings that we've got up until now.
All right, we got to take a break.
We'll just lie about
it. We'll be right back, John.
Let's falsify the test
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Oh, man. All right, we're continuing here. Wow, this has become comedy hour, and the comedy is in the fraud of the vaccine and all the people who fell for it, all the doctors, all the pharmacists, all the CDC officials. Hey, John, I got a Jeopardy quiz question for you. Where is the former president, the former head of the CDC who was running the CDC during all of this alleged fraud that went on with the fake vaccine? Where is she now? Let our audience know.
Couldn't be with a drug company, could it?
Of course not. That would be too funny.
That would never happen.
That would never happen to Dr. Julie Gerberding, who is now running one of the top vaccine companies' international divisions. But this is the thing. This is the thing. I guess if the lie is told by enough authorities and enough doctors with people with medical degrees, as my friend Robert Scott Bell likes to say, I guess the lie becomes reality. And then if the lab tests don't match the lie, they just spike it with some animal blood. They just throw in, they change the numbers, roll the dice, do whatever they want, invent something, send it over to the FDA, and sell it to 200 million American children. or all over the world. It's probably not 200 million children, but 200 million Americans overall got these vaccines. So that's a big number. That's a lot of people who got hoodwinked.
Absolutely. That's what they do. They establish, okay, this is reality. Everybody's on board. Everybody knows we can't, rock the boat here because we've gone too far. So now if anything comes up that really contradicts what we've been saying here and claiming, we've got to lie about it. Everybody understand that? Everybody understands. Yes. Okay, let's move forward now. And that's what they do. And what they're taught and what they learn is how to sound like they know what they're talking about. Yeah. I mean, this is media, this is doctors, this is all of these people. Their main skill as far as dealing with people is, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I mean, I see people on television all the time talking about medical stuff. I mean, analysts and commentators like Bill Maher and so forth, as if they have the slightest idea what they're talking about. They have no clue. I mean, where are they getting their information from? You don't find them in medical libraries reading through studies and calling up researchers on the phone. They're just taking their clue from all of the other lying idiots and criminals who have access to and control the media, basically. And so we're pointing out here the lies and how deep they go. And they go all the way to the bottom. This rabbit hole has no bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, can you stay with us a little bit into the next hour, because there's still so much more to cover here. This is huge breaking news. This is, okay, now think about the application. Once we understand the depth of the fraud, and by the way, the mainstream media is practically refusing to cover this. You're only going to get this on places like Infowars, Natural News, Drudge Report, places like that. But if this has been faked for the last at least 10 years, then now you got to look at all the mandatory vaccination policies that have been put into place, like in Texas, where before you go to a university, you have to be injected with the fake mumps vaccine. In California, the mandatory vaccines, don't these state governments now have to take a new look and say, wait a minute, how can we mandate something that's total fraud?
I bet they won't. I bet they'll just, oh, well, that was an interesting article. Okay, so let's get out the vaccines and, keep on. That's what they do, and then if you argue with them, they'll say, you could be a terrorist.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the end of sanity in America. It's the end of truth. It's the end of justice. The country's being run by total zombie, runaway, criminal-minded, insane, psychotic, sociopathic bureaucrats and doctors and drug company executives. It's crazy. We'll be right back with Jon Rappoport and much more straight ahead, continuing here on The Alex Jones Show. Continuing into the third hour of the Alex Jones today, this is Mike Adams filling in for Alex with our guest, Jon Rappoport from No More Fake News criminality.com. Now, John, because this segment is not carried by all the radio affiliates, I want to depart for just a moment and get onto this. I've got a trace mineral block in my hand here in the Infowars studios. This is it's about the size of a brick. Here, hold it up for you here for the camera. You can see on prisonplanet.tv. This is a mineral lick for animals, and the ingredients include zinc oxide, ferrous carbonate, iron, obviously, manganese, iodine, cobalt, and salt, and some other minerals. John, can you explain to our listeners, why is it that in America we use trace minerals to keep our cattle alive, but anybody who tries to prescribe trace minerals to humans is considered a quack? What's going on with that?
I guess the animals are more important than the humans. And secondly, the drug companies have a complete stranglehold, or trying to, on the market. So imagine what would happen if people began to take enough trace minerals in the right way so that their health suddenly blossomed.
Yeah.
Now, you know, the people from doctor's office call up and say, well, you know, you're scheduled for your check and we told you to come and so forth. Well, you know, actually, I don't have to come because I have to tell you, I'm feeling so healthy, it's ridiculous. What do you mean you're feeling so healthy? You mean you're not sick? No, I haven't been sick in a long time now that I'm taking my minerals. What minerals? I mean, this is now, you know, a distinct threat to the multi-trillion-dollar establishment. You can't have healthy people running around in the country.
No, you don't need minerals, John. You need a mumps vaccine.
That's right. You need a mumps
what your
vaccine
body needs.
that doesn't work. Yeah, that's what you really need, you know. Maybe they'll start putting minerals in the mumps vaccine, you know. That'll be the way of combating the sales of natural minerals. It's just stark. It's that stark, Mike. It's the same idea, you know. If you're marketing a product that actually works and it's not a drug, I mean, this is one of the reasons why they went after Stan Brzezinski so hard in Texas, MD, treating cancer patients with extraordinary results for decades now.
Yeah.
Has been subjected to how many grand juries? At least 7. They've been trying to shut him down, you know, in every possible way. Well, one of the problems is that Dr. Brzezinski developed his own medicine. This is like the cardinal sin. No drug company is producing it. He produces it himself. Well, now you're really talking about, this is like holding a gun to the drug companies' heads. We have to get rid of this guy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, check this out. So Infowars, a lot of people are drink tangy tangerine. So there's a bottle here on Alex's desk. I just grabbed it. Look at the minerals in this. This is the equivalent of the mineral supplement to the cattle that you want to keep alive. If you want to keep your people alive, you got to have minerals. So this has iron, magnesium, zinc, selenium, copper, chromium, and potassium, and plus probably some other trace minerals as well. But so, you know, this is the kind of thing, if you want to stay alive, or if you want to keep your animals alive, you got to have trace minerals in your biology. But yet, if you go buy the sugar, if you go buy the wheat that's processed, the bleached white flour, all the minerals are stripped away. So humans are being fed this diet that is devoid of minerals. That's if it's even in the soil to begin with, which usually it's not anymore because the soils have been essentially mined for the minerals long ago. So, you know, we have a nation of mineral deficient and vitamin D deficient people, and they say the answer is more drugs, and the drugs turn out to be total fraud. Wow.
Yeah, and the drugs strip other minerals out of your body. But, you know, eating all the deficient foods is great business for the pharmaceutical companies because they say, well, this is terrific, no more topsoil, and they stripped all the minerals out of the food. Fabulous, because now, watch them get
stay with
sick.
us, John. We got to go to break, sorry to interrupt. We'll finish up with Merck on the other side, and then we have a guest coming up, U.S. Army medic, straight ahead. Welcome back to the third hour of the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, filling in for Alex today. Thank you for continuing with us. We're continuing. We held over Jon Rappoport for just a few minutes to wrap up this section. Blockbuster news about the total fraud and criminality of the pharmaceutical and vaccine industry. This is all becoming public knowledge now on the record. And then we're going to be joined in a few minutes by a U.S. Army medic he went through a very difficult court-martial because of his refusal to be injected with experimental vaccines by the military. He'll be joining us by Skype with comments on that in just a few minutes. But catching up and then wrapping this up, John, GlaxoSmithKline, again, pleads guilty to bribery, fraud, and other crimes, $3 billion fine. 2 Merck virologists come out and say the company spiked its blood samples, falsified its test results, and defrauded the government of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, and they say, by the way, quote, the ultimate victims here are the millions of children who every year are being injected with a mumps vaccine that is not providing them with an adequate level of protection. The failure in Merck's vaccine has allowed this disease to linger, with significant outbreaks continuing to occur. So there we go, Merck's own former employees saying that Merck is causing the spread of infectious disease that their vaccines claim to actually prevent. But on top of that, John, here's where I want your comments, and thank you for staying with us, I really appreciate it. The Chatham Primary Care has filed a lawsuit against Merck, now claiming that they were defrauded by Merck because of a, quote, decade-long scheme to falsify and misrepresent the true efficacy of its vaccine. Says that Merck knows and has taken affirmative steps to conceal that this mumps vaccine is far less than 95% effective, and that this has been going on since at least 1999. Wow, this is a long-standing, ongoing situation. So are you familiar with the details of that lawsuit, John, or do you have any comments on it?
Well, the comment that I have is I'm happy to hear this, because since the Department of Justice will do absolutely nothing to prosecute the people at Merck responsible for this, then if you can pile on with more lawsuits, that's a good thing. If you can get different groups who were actually defrauded, just like this one was, to take them to court and say, well, we were defrauded too, so pay us out as well. Because what this is saying basically, Mike, is if a drug company defrauds intentionally 100 million people, those 100 million people deserve something in return.
Yes, at least a refund. If not,
at least a refund,
if not
yeah.
more punitive damages.
Quite a bit more, because they were injected with something. It wasn't like you bought a toaster and it didn't toast the bread, you know.
It did probably toast their brain a little bit, though.
Right. So, yeah, you would deserve
stealth
a little
viruses.
bit more.
Well, yeah, but see, this is the big picture here, is that there's immunity granted to the drug companies over vaccines. So you can't have a class action lawsuit now. So the government has created a situation where there is no justice for the fraud that's now emerging from the vaccine industry. There is no justice.
Well, that's what they did. That's how they covered themselves. The vaccine companies went to the government 10 years ago, a little bit more, and said, well, guys, basically, we're going to get out of the vaccine business because there's too many lawsuits and we can't make any money. And so there were meetings. They sat down in a room and they started to hammer out this whole kind of agreement. And the government said, well, you know, I mean, we got to keep making vaccines. I mean, come on. And the drug companies were kind of laughing up their sleeve, and they said, well, look, if you grant us immunity from lawsuits and you create some kind of hokey little government payout system with a lot of red tape, then we can make a deal. And the government said, yeah, sure, why not? We can do that. And that's what happened. And that's why you've got this very limited window of opportunity to make these drug companies pay for what they do.
Well, something has got to happen. Last drug company to be mentioned here today is Pfizer, now being sued by retailers over what is deemed an anti-competitive scheme. Many of the largest pharmacies in the U.S. are now suing Pfizer, and this is reported on by Reuters and other sources. The lawsuit claims that Pfizer obtained a fraudulent patent, engaged in sham litigation, entered a price-fixing agreement to delay the arrival of cheaper generic drugs, and entered arrangements with pharmacy benefit managers to force retailers to buy more Lipitor, their cholesterol drug. So now we have, look about all the parties that are potentially harmed in all this. Now we have the pharmacies claiming that they're the victims of anti-competitive, monopolistic, price-fixing behavior by Pfizer. This is getting deep.
Oh, yeah. This is getting very deep because, you know, if you're selling basically a fraudulent, dangerous product to begin with, it stands to reason that you're the type of criminal mind who will do whatever you can to maximize your profits, right? And so price fixing, we don't want those generic drugs on the market. We want pharmacies to keep selling Lipitor or whatever. They're going to do that. They're going to just keep pushing the envelope wherever they can. And now suppose they get fined. I don't know how much they're going to have to pay out, a few $100 million. Where does that rank against the sales of Lipitor?
Exactly.
It's just like, a little minnow in the ocean.
Yeah, right. All right, last thing, John, then I'll let you go. Again, I appreciate your time. I'm going to ask you 8 or 9 rapid-fire questions. I want a yes or no from you, and whether you think, yes or no only.
Is it a pass or fail?
This is, yeah. Now, you already passed. We just want your comments. Would Big Pharma engage in the following behaviors? Yes or no, Jon Rappoport? Number 1, would they falsify efficacy data on other prescription drugs?
Yes.
Would they exploit children for deadly vaccine trials?
Absolutely, yes.
How about this? Would they invent fictitious diseases to sell more drugs?
Yes, with exclamation points.
All right, only yes or no, no exclamation marks. No.
Sorry.
Would they? Okay, here's this might stump you. Would they unleash bioweapons to cause a pandemic that would make them money?
Yes.
Okay. Would they conspire with the CDC to spread fear about a pandemic to promote more vaccination sales?
Yes.
That's a no-brainer. Would they silence whistleblowers who try to go to the public with the truth?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Would they give people cancer via stealth viruses and vaccines to sell more high-profit cancer treatments?
Yes.
Would they destroy the careers of medical scientists who question Big Pharma and the vaccine mythology?
Yes.
This is all yeses. Okay, fine. Last question. Would they force a medical monopoly on the entire U.S. population via socialist healthcare legislation?
Gee, let me think about that. Yes.
All right. A+, Jon Rappoport.
Oh,
hey,
boy,
you got
okay.
A+ for you, man.
Send me my diploma.
I'm going to say you got a PhD for that one right there. Thank you for joining us, John. It's always great to have you on.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's been great.
All right, Jon Rappoport, everybody, from nomorefakenews.com if you'd like to learn more from John. And, John, thanks for playing along with my impromptu pop quiz right there. And, yes, you passed with flying colors. Okay, now we've I'm sure I'll hear about that later from John. Anyway, coming up now, we've got a guest joining us. Let me ask the producers, is he on the line? Not yet. Okay, I'm going to give you an intro of what this is all about. He is a U.S. Army medic, and his name is Sean, how do I pronounce his last name? Nemi or Nemi? Nemi? I think it's Nemi. Okay. Sean Nemi, who has gone through a very, very difficult time. He was court-martialed, essentially, went through a court-martial process. Be sure to keep getting him on the line. Let me know when he's on. He did not want to be vaccinated by the military's experimental vaccines. And so he filed for a religious exemption. He went to his pastor, and explained his beliefs. And by the way, he's being represented by attorney Patricia Finn, who is a vaccine rights or an anti-vaccine rights attorney who has been featured on Infowars and Infowars Nightly News as well. So he applied for the exemption, and that exemption, according to military law, is allowed to be granted to you as long as your commanding officer agrees to it. Well, his commanding officer, for some reason, did not agree to it, and put him through what he describes as a hell type of experience. Oh, okay, his name is Nemi, I'm being told. That's the correct pronunciation of his last name. He went through hell, and he's now out of the military, and then the military actually took money out of his paycheck, he says, actually taking money from him while he was trying to get back on his feet with his family. It sounds like this is a story of just incredible medical abuse in the military. That's why we wanted to have Sean on the Alex Jones Show today. Sean, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the show. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Yeah, I can see you. Welcome to the show. How are you feeling, man?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing just fantastic. I gave a brief introduction to your situation there, but tell us in your own words. We've got a couple minutes before the next break. Go ahead and run down what happened to you in your own words, please.
All right. Back in 2009, if you all remember that we had a little bit of an H1N1 scare, or an invented scare, I found out that the immunizations that they were handing out, that the military was handing out to us, was an experimental version. It wasn't the same version that the rest of the world was getting. U.S. military was the only people getting this experimental version. I decided at that point I wasn't going to give it to my soldiers. I wasn't going to take it myself.
And what was your position there? You were a U.S. Army medic, correct?
Yes, I was the cavalry troops senior medic.
And what group were you with? Where were you stationed?
I was stationed in Afghanistan at the time with the 10th Mountain Division.
Okay, all right. We're going to go to break. Your story, please continue with us on the other side of this break. We want to find out what happened to you, what you did about it, and what this means for all soldiers in the military today. Right here on the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back with all that and much more. Okay, we're continuing here on the Alex Jones Show. Welcome back. Here we go. We're continuing with U.S. Army medic Sean Nimai. That's the right pronunciation. He joins us by Skype to tell us what happened to him in the military and his attempts to protect his body, his health, from the experimental vaccines that are being forced on soldiers every day, it seems. So go ahead, Sean. You were telling us where you were stationed. Please continue with your story.
Yes. As I said, in 2009, I was in Afghanistan, stationed there for a year deployment with the 10th Mountain Division. I refused to receive or give the H1N1 experimental vaccine at that time. It was received at the time with a little bit of distrust from my chain of command, but once I explained to them that it was an experimental version, I didn't feel safe giving it to soldiers when I didn't even have a pamphlet that normally comes with medications and immunizations. We had no literature.
Really?
At all.
So they just said, here it is, take it, and we're not going to provide any information about it. Just trust us, basically. Is that what they said?
It was generic labels on the bottles. All it said was keep refrigerated, and this is the dosage.
Wow.
That's what we were told about it.
So what caused you to have red flags about it? Why would you even suspect the safety of it in the first place?
Well, part of the biggest reason that I questioned it to begin with was the fact that there was no literature. I'm kind of OCD about making sure that I read all the literature to all the medications that I'm supposed to give to my soldiers. When there was no literature brought with the vaccines, I requested from the Brigade Medical Services Office, hey, you guys forgot to send the literature with this. And they said, no, there isn't any. Just follow the directions on the labels that are on the bottles, and you'll be fine. So at that point, I decided that it was time to look a little deeper into things. Found out that there was actually 3 different batches, 3 different formulas of the H1N1 vaccines that were being mass-produced for human use. 2 of them were being distributed to civilians all over the world. The 3rd one was being distributed to U.S. military members only. That also raised a couple of red flags.
Yeah, the special soldier edition with no documentation. So let me ask you this. How many soldiers were you in charge of in terms of their medical care?
I don't remember the exact number. It was a little over 100 of the U.S. soldiers from my unit and a couple of other units that were co-located with us, and then approximately 250 Afghan national forces that we did different missions in conjunction with them.
Okay, and where did you receive your medical training, and can you describe it just briefly so everybody has a background of your medical background, so to speak?
Yeah. After basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I went to AIT's Advanced Individual Training, which is medic school at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. spent, I think it was about 4.5 to 5 months there, learning not only an EMT civilian side of emergency medicine, but also the Army side of tactical combat casualty care, which is a little more, I don't know what the exact word would be. It's a little more goal-oriented in keeping people alive, not so much keeping them pretty.
Well, keeping them alive is a good thing, but then, so it sounds like with the vaccines, you were concerned about the implications of that experimental vaccine on the health of the people whose health you were, at least in part, responsible for. So when did you start getting resistance to this, and how did that emerge in your experience there? What happened to you? Because I saw at one point you were being threatened with even being fragged.
Correct.
Lead us to that point. What happened?
After that deployment was over, we got back to Fort Drum, New York, and started the reset for the next upcoming deployment, which was going to be about a year to a year and a half out. So we started train up, reset, getting new equipment, getting new soldiers. At that point, we have to go through a medical screening.
All right, Sean, I got to interrupt you. We got one more break right here and then a long segment on the other side of this. But I want to hear your story of how you got threatened with even being killed if you didn't go along with their vaccine agenda. That straight ahead. Stay with us right here on The Alex Jones Show. All right, we're back on The Alex Jones Show. Thank you for continuing with us. This was Mike Adams filling in. Today we're continuing our interview with Sean Nimai, U.S. Army medic, who was just telling us what happened to him with the experimental military vaccines that he didn't want to give to his men because he thought, well, it might not be safe, and there was no literature that came with them. So sorry about the interruption there, Sean. Go right on ahead with relating your story. Please go ahead.
Yes. So like I was saying, part of the preparation for the next upcoming deployment was we would have to go and have our medical records screened, get whatever immunization shots, eye tests, dental screenings that's needed in order to go overseas. At that point, I decided, well, I'd already decided up until that point that I wasn't going to receive any more of the immunizations, vaccines. I talked with my wife, and we were in agreement that because of our religious convictions, that it wasn't right for us anymore for me to be receiving these. That at that point, I put in what's called a religious exemption request to basically get me an exemption from any and all vaccines, immunizations, prophylactic medications such as the malaria pills.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I said yes, and now that's a normal accepted procedure in the military. So why wasn't that accepted in the chain of command? What happened there?
Well, part of the problem is that sort of an exemption is only approval denial up until company level commander. It doesn't have to go any higher than him. And my company level commander in a cavalry unit, it's called a troop. I don't think he liked me very much.
I have an affidavit here. Oh, I'm sorry, your voice cut out.
That's okay. I was just saying that there had been a history between him and myself during different training exercises and such. And I really don't think he liked me very much. So he had already made up his mind before he had looked into the regulations and whether or not I was even allowed to request such a thing. I'm pretty sure he already made up his mind that he was going to deny it and give me an order to go get shots.
So it sounds like this was a punitive, vengeful type of action targeted to you personally because of personal disagreements. Is that a fair characterization?
I would definitely say so, yes.
And then I have an affidavit here, sworn affidavit by a Sergeant Medic Team Leader, Anthony Comau, who supports your story and says that this captain began to refer to you as, quote, bacteria man, and said they want to throw you inside a wall locker and throw a hand grenade in with you.
Correct.
So that's a pretty serious accusation and a serious crime in the military, if true, indeed.
Yes. Even the act of stating anything about fratricide is actually a crime. It's against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So even if he didn't ever try to go through with any kind of a plan like that, just stating that he was thinking about it is actually a crime in the military.
Okay, wow. And so there were witnesses to this threat that, according to this paper, was made by Captain Rappoport. Is that the name?
Correct. Captain Rappoport, yes. Captain
Rappoport. And so what happened next? I mean, you're out of the military now, so how did you get out with an honorable discharge? What was the situation?
Well, right after he denied my request for religious exemption, he immediately gave me a direct order to go get all the vaccines and shots and so on and so forth that I needed for the upcoming deployment. I told him at that point, sir, with all due respect to your grade and position, I cannot in good conscience do that because it violates my religious beliefs. And at that point, he had one of the other NCOs in the medical platoon escort me to the readiness center, at which time I told the team leader there, I'm not getting the shots, go ahead and take me back.
Did they try to force the shots onto you at that point?
No, they, with the smaller women that are nurses at the readiness center, I don't think anybody was going to force me to do anything.
Okay, so you stood your ground, and then what happened?
We get back to the unit area, and I'm informed at that moment that Captain Rappoport was going to be filing papers to request an Article 15. And what an Article 15 is, it's again another kind of punishment under Uniform Code of Military Justice, to where I could lose all the rank that I had gained, lose a large sum of money. I could be put onto restrictions, so on and so forth. There's a long list of possible punishments that go along with an Article 15 punishment.
By the way, give out your website for those who want to learn more about this after the show. What's the web address where people can hear or read about your experience?
Yeah, I have a blog. It's vaccinebattles.wordpress.com.
Okay, vaccinebattles.wordpress.com. That's a good name. So there, are you continuing to blog there and give updates to the developing elements of the story?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm husband, father, so
right.
Get a little busy. I'm getting ready to go to school next month too. So
all right. So section or Article 15, they tried to get you onto that. Did they succeed, or what happened?
The interesting thing about this is that under an Article 15 proceeding, I have the right to either accept the punishment from Article 15 or request court-martial, which is basically I go to court, tell the judge my side, possibly tell a jury of my peers, so to speak, my side of it, and we let the judge decide instead of letting the commander just go ahead and decide what he wants to do with me. So I obviously requested court-martial because I firmly believe that I was right. I don't remember ever signing away my religious rights or any other constitutionally guaranteed rights when I signed up for the military.
Right.
So I requested court-martial, at which point pretty much everybody in the room, honestly, I thought that everybody had saw a ghost at that moment, because apparently people don't request court-martials very often.
well, I'll tell you, military justice. But so take us through that. What happened at the court-martial hearing?
Well, the court-martial proceedings actually lasted for over a year, at which point I'd gotten a court-ordered military attorney, guessed that I don't mention his name.
Yes.
I had also acquired for myself civilian attorney Patricia Finn. Between the two of them, they kept me going. One of them would say, just take whatever deal you can get. The other one would say, keep fighting. And they would, the prosecution would come back with another offer, and then it would be role reversal. One would say, that sounds like a pretty good deal. The other one would say, no, keep fighting. So it went back and forth, and I was under no impression that I was ever going to give up, because I felt that I was right. And if that meant being convicted and going to federal prison at Fort Leavenworth for a year, then that's what I would do.
Let me ask you this, though. What was the opinion of the soldiers whose health you were responsible for as a medic? Did they support your decision not to have them injected with an experimental vaccine, or did they want the vaccine? What was their take?
Well, I would say that an overwhelming number were very supportive. I had already known most of those soldiers for a couple of years, and they trusted me implicitly. If I said, you don't need this, then they would fight to the end, saying, I don't need this injection, this shot. If Doc says it, and it's the word of God as far as I'm concerned.
Now, in retrospect, got to ask you, we know that the H5N1 pandemic was mostly a fraud. It was designed. I mean, we covered a lot of the fraudulent news today about what's come out about the vaccine fraud from one company in particular, whistleblowers coming out. And we know that the H5N1 pandemic was a fraud designed to sell vaccines. So as you monitor all of this news coming out, doesn't this really vindicate your decision? I mean, there was no pandemic happening over there that vaccine would have stopped.
Right. The worst part about all of that is that the entire time that we were deployed during the supposed pandemic, I got reports on a weekly basis about in-country medical status for all the units in country. And I don't remember seeing a single soldier that was positive with H1N1, H5N1, or any other swine flu derivative.
That's because it was a hoax, man. The whole thing was a hoax.
Exactly.
And so let me tell you, let me give you a little bit of behind the scenes too. What this is the drug companies making money by treating U.S. soldiers like chemical pin cushions, and then convincing the higher ups in the military to just, spend all this money on the vaccines. The drug companies go cash the checks at the bank, and the J.P. Morgan controller bank, by the way, and then the soldiers get treated like human guinea pigs. So you were trying to stop that, and it seems like you did so from a rational, ethical basis in the protection of the lives and health of the men who you were responsible for. So, in my opinion, you should be given a medal or something for doing that. But instead, they wanted to throw you to the wolves.
Correct. It was tougher on my family, really, than it was on me. I've dealt with the military, at that point for about 6 years. I knew how they are. And I already knew that we're basically considered to be just big, dumb animals there to enforce foreign policy.
Right.
So.
All right, well, tell us then, how did this conclude?
Okay, so my military attorney is actually the one that found this little-known regulation where if any decision goes against the military's ideas, and it's based on a real, honest, sincerely held religious belief, then that soldier can request from the Secretary of the Army, in this case, John McHugh, to be released because of, I forget the exact wording, but it's called a Chapter 5-3, and you can look that up on Google, pops right up. Okay. But basically the wording that I got in my letter from Secretary of the Army McHugh was, we're very sorry, Specialist Nimai, that the Army is no longer able to abide by your religious beliefs. So please accept our apologies, and here's an honorable discharge. You can keep all of your benefits, your Veterans Affairs benefits, GI Bill, so on and so forth.
So that sounded like good news, but then something else happened, right?
Oh, more things are happening on a daily basis, it seems like.
So you got out with an honorable discharge, and you were supposed to have your benefits intact.
Correct. So in my last, I guess it was about 3 or 4 days in the military, I'm doing all of the check the box, turn all this gear back in, go to finance, make sure that my final paycheck is going to be okay. When finance tells me that supposedly I owe a part of my reenlistment bonus back.
So okay, how much was your reenlistment bonus?
It was $13,500 back in 2007.
So now, because you're exiting the military, they argued that you needed to pay a portion of that back?
Correct.
And how much did that come to?
Just under $5,000.
So they docked your final paycheck, or what did they do? Send you a bill?
Well, both, actually. They took the entire final paycheck and then sent me a bill for almost $1,000.
And of course, you had no job. I mean, you just got out of the military. You had no employment at that time, right?
Correct. That's another thing that happened along the way out was all military medics are trained and certified as emergency medical technicians. Well, when I went to recertify earlier this year, well before my recertification date was due, I was told basically that I didn't have enough classes, enough of the continuing education unit classes to recertify. So I, of course, went back through my files, pulled out all of my diplomas, all of my little, certificates and whatnots, and found out, not only did I have enough, I had more than enough. I had an excess of continuing education hours needed to recertify my EMT. I called back every other day to both the National Registry of EMTs in San Antonio and my local medical training facility at Fort Drum and tried to get it straightened out, but as of right now, I'm still not licensed.
Well, wait a minute. Do you think that somebody in an act of revenge is messing with your records to deny you employment? Is that your theory, or is this just some paperwork snafu that the military is sometimes famous for?
Well, at first I thought, okay, military, going between a military organization and a civilian organization, paperwork's going to get messed up, computers are going to be down sometimes, okay, fine. But after about 3 months of arguing back and forth with these people on both sides, both of them blaming the other one, of course.
Meanwhile, you're out of work, you can't get work as an EMT. Right.
So,
okay, so is this situation still not resolved at this point? What are you doing for work right now?
Right now, I'm unemployed. I'm getting ready to start possibly next week or the week after with Volunteer Fire Squad here in East Tennessee, and I'm going to school next month, going back to college.
Wow. What words do you have for other soldiers in the military or people considering going into the military? You've been through quite an experience here. Do you have some wisdom to share with others who may be considering that?
Well, to the people that are already in, I would, before you file a religious exemption request, I would ask the commander, your unit commander, ask your first sergeant, ask your chain of command, what do you think of this? If they tell you flat out that they're not going to approve it, then expect the same type of treatment that I got. If they tell you that they're open to take a look at it, then go ahead and file it. It's the regulation dealing with that is AR 40-562.
All right, we're gonna go to break here. We'll be right back. Stay with us, Sean. We'll continue with you on the other side here on the Alex Jones Show. Be right back. All right, U.S. Army medic Sean Nimai is continuing with us. We're about to wrap this up, Sean. I want to say that on behalf of all Americans, I'm ashamed at the way that the U.S. government treats its soldiers in so many cases. Just the Veterans Administration treatment that soldiers are given. But this thing, the way they treated you is an embarrassment, and I want to wish you well in your civilian life and ask if you have any final words you'd like to add to this interview.
Like I was saying before the break, any soldiers, current soldiers, or any other service members, the regulations are a little different for Air Force, Navy, Marines, but anybody that has questions, feel free to ask me. I put out the blog address. I have links to my YouTube page and Facebook account also on there. Feel free to ask. I can help guide you through the very, very ridiculously difficult path of trying to get a religious exemption. For soldiers, service members that are thinking about joining, I would say don't wait till you get to your unit. Try to get your exemption with your recruiter. It's a lot easier to get an exemption before you go in than after you get there.
Well said. And the web address is vaccinebattles.wordpress.com. Sean Nimai, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Take care. By the way, we have an article about that situation. It should go up tomorrow morning on naturalnews.com with some more details about Sean's situation. We've been investigating that for roughly a week or so. You know, I think bottom line here, some of what we've gone over today, you know, the nation has a sacred responsibility to treat its soldiers with respect and dignity. And that is absolutely not happening. That was just one example that we saw with Sean there. The truth is, these experimental vaccines, which are so often based on complete medical quackery and fraud, these vaccines are sold between from the drug companies to the government with these under-the-table deals, these secret deals with kickbacks and bribes and all these kinds of incentives to the decision makers, and then they're dumped essentially onto the troops. The troops are treated as a biological vaccine disposal system so that the vaccine companies can just make more money selling a vaccine that they don't even have any proof that it works or that it's safe. They don't even include documentation of any kind whatsoever. There's virtually no testing done for long-term safety and efficacy of these vaccines. Across the vaccine industry, you're looking at runaway total criminality and fraud throughout the vaccine industry, and unfortunately, that spills over into the military. Speaking of the military, by the way, check this out. $9.2 billion was spent in just 4 days, according to a BusinessInsider.com article. That's up from $4 billion the week before. And $6 billion of that was used to pay 11 commercial shipping companies to ship Department of Defense stuff around the planet. So there go your taxpayer dollars. And check this out. Hey, there's $146 million of money that was sent to the Boeing company for foreign arms deals. This is to provide weapons to nations like the Republic of Korea and then Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, India. Shouldn't the customers buy their own military gear? Why do taxpayers have to pay to build missiles to ship over to North Korea for their defense? Shouldn't they buy their own stuff? I mean, come on. This is crazy. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. It's been great being with you on the show here on the Alex Jones Show. I want to thank the crew for doing a great job, and thank Sean Nimai and Jon Rappoport for being with us today. Get informed, folks. Get informed, and realize it's not just an info war. There's also a spiritual war going on. Get informed. We can win this thing together. Retransmission begins now. Join us on Nightly News. This is Mike Adams. Take care.
It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal.
to the Alex Jones Show. It is another Monday, and this is Mike Adams filling in for Alex today, who is no doubt still working today because he just never stops working. We've got an incredible lineup of news for you here today. Breaking news on several fronts. We've got some hard-hitting guests joining us, including in the third hour, a U.S. Army medic who was court-martialed for refusing vaccines, but even going through the legal process in the military to have a religious exemption to those vaccines. He was threatened with being fragged, among other things. He's going to join us in the third hour. In the second hour, we're joined by Jon Rappoport from NoMoreFakeNews.com we are going to tear into the breaking news now about the drug companies and the fraud and the bribery and the spiked vaccine test results. We now have evidence, virtually proof at this point, whistleblowers from inside Merck who say that they caught their companies spiking the mumps vaccine with animal antibodies to fake the efficacy rate in order to defraud the U.S. government and lie to the FDA. And they say that, in fact, Merck's behavior, according to their allegations, which were filed in a False Claims Act that's now a matter of public record, they say that Merck actually, through their actions, contributed to the spread of infectious disease and thereby allowed them to sell more vaccines because the disease was spreading. Gee, we're vindicated yet again here in the alternative media, which is becoming the new mainstream media, the only truth-telling media left on the planet, it seems. We've got that story coming up in the second hour. Also, here in the first hour, I've got a review of the new video just put out yesterday by Alex Jones and the Infowars crew, Humanity's Greatest Secret. I'm going to talk about that and tell you why that is such a big deal and why the big picture perspective here is so on target to what really matters. We are talking about the future of human civilization. It's why we've got to defeat the tyranny. We've got to defeat the globalists. We've got to defeat the genetic intervention of the future of life on Earth, because the very future of humanity is at stake. And I'll tell you why coming up in the bottom of this first hour. But before then, now some of the breaking news today. Check this out. Well, let's start with the simple stuff, and then we'll get into the more fascinating things. But a poll, the Hill poll, says the majority of Americans now believe Obama has going to roll into Texas and confiscate everybody's guns. That is a pathetic and a hilarious idea at the same time. That is never going to happen. Never going to happen. Just try it. Oh, man. The UN people don't know Texas, let me tell you. All right, moving on. Cell phone radiation. The telecommunications companies do not want you to know the truth about the research between cell phones and radiation. This is up on, is this on Infowars.com right now, guys? Any idea? I think it is. Okay. Infowars.com. Check that out. The Daily Caller has a new article today. Formal complaint seeks the disbarment of Eric Holder in D.C. So they're going to try to actually disbar this top attorney in the country. Think about it. This is the guy that is the most powerful attorney in the nation in terms of just rank, constitutional rank. Maybe rank is the right word, but and yet he's the one who masterminded the gun running into Mexico, a complete violation of law. So there's an effort now to try to disbar him. That's been published at the Daily Caller. And Mike Vanderbone and David Cadria filed a formal complaint with the Washington, D.C. office of Bar Counsel, alleging that Holder had committed, quote, professional misconduct during the congressional investigation into the scandal. Yeah, you think so? Lying to investigators, withholding evidence, conspiring to commit felony acts in order to destroy the rights of people to purchase legal firearms for their own self-defense. Really? Is that professional misconduct? I guess we'll find out. What do we have here? Zero hedge. China shuns U.S. and invests directly in Iran oil fields. So here we have more. This is a strategic question of how China and Iran are forming stronger ties. And by the way, China is doing this all over the world, forming financial and political ties with nations that have key resources that are crucial for the ongoing success of the Chinese economy. If you look at supplies of things like natural gas, petroleum, and even concrete, China's got them. China's got the dibs on those resources, and they're pulling them in. And they're making sure that countries like the United States can't get access to those resources. And at the same time, by the way, China has all the rare earth metals and minerals that are key strategic resources in terms of weapons and guided missiles and telecommunications equipment, all those kinds of things. China has a lock on those too. So watch for that to get very heated in the years ahead. All right, here we go. If you host a Bible study program in your own home, you could be facing 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine. This is what happened to a couple in Arizona, in Phoenix, and he's been sentenced now to 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine for hosting Bible study. Michael Salmon and his wife have been hosting gatherings for 15 to 20 people to discuss the Bible. Now they're going to jail because you can't teach people out of your own home. We'll have a lot more straight ahead. Stay with us here on The Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back with much more. Yeah, we're back on The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the health ranger, filling in today. I'm the editor. How it can destroy people's lives once they get hooked on the drug and then they need it and they can't get off the drug and then they go to other transition drugs and their lives are just destroyed. Well, the Wall Street Journal has an article. This was actually from a couple of days ago. I got a printout right here in front of me. The headline, here it is, July 2nd. The headline is OxyContin trial planned for kids. For children, children as young as 6 years old, 6 to 16, are going to be brought into a clinical trial to study the effects of 2 daily doses of OxyContin on these 6-year-old children who have, quote, moderate to severe pain, who require opioid analgesics. Opioids, yeah, right. So now, okay, let me get this straight. Welcome to America. You don't have the free speech right to tell the truth about nutrition, but we do in the airports sexually molest the children through the TSA agents, and now we're going to put children on highly addictive pain-killing drugs when they're 6 years old, not to mention shooting them up with endless vaccines, which we're going to show later in this show how at least one of those has been completely faked for over 10 years. Faked. We're going to show that. We're going to have a whole segment on that in the second hour here. And then on top of that, they put these kids on psychiatric drugs, the mind-altering psych drugs, the SSRIs, the antidepressants, the psychotropics. Aren't children supposed to be sacred? Isn't life supposed to be sacred? Aren't children supposed to be protected against this kind of exploitation by the drug companies? It is insane that we allow pedophiles to run loose in this country and we allow the drug companies to treat our children like guinea pigs. But that's what's going on. That's okay. Moving on, because I'll get into crazy areas of discussion about that topic. This is in Forbes. Forbes, an article by Larry Bell. You may have already seen this. I think Alex mentioned it yesterday. The UN agreement should have all gun owners up in arms. This is the UN agreement, the Small Arms Treaty. And in this article by Larry Bell, he points out that if this is passed by the UN and then ratified by the U.S. Senate, here's what it's going to mean. Are you ready for this? Here's what it's going to mean. All of you legal, lawful gun owners out there, listen up. It's going to, quote, ban the sale, trade, and private ownership of all semi-automatic weapons. Yeah, semi-autos. That means, you know, you pull the trigger once, you get one shot. All going to be banned. And there's going to be an international gun registry. So if you own a gun, you're supposed to register with the UN. How's that for globalist control? And, oh, they're going to confiscate and destroy all, quote, unauthorized civilian firearms. Well, what are unauthorized firearms? Well, the ones that Obama says you shouldn't have, basically, or the UN says you shouldn't have. Unauthorized firearms would be any firearms that function. You know, it's funny, being here in Austin, Texas, I just laugh at this, at the idea that the UN thinks they've changed the country for the worse. 56% of likely voters, they say, believe Obama's first term has transformed the nation in a negative way. You think? You think? Yeah, maybe, and 35% believe the country has changed for the better. Like, where are these 35%? I'm curious. about those people. Do they think we should run more guns into Mexico? Do they think we should destroy more of the Bill of Rights? I mean, how how many amendments are remaining before they stamp them all out? Anyway, that's an interesting poll at thehill.com. Here's something interesting. A family was slugged with a carbon tax for the funeral. So while they were grieving for the loss of a loved one, they got slapped with a carbon tax for burying their family member. And it seems like the cemetery here had to apologize because they said, quote, even the dead don't escape the carbon tax. Yeah, nothing certain but death and taxes, and now carbon taxes when you're dead. That's what it's all coming to. Al Gore should be happy. I guess we're all going to keep paying taxes as our bodies decompose and release elements into the atmosphere. We're going to be taxed on that as well. Now, McDonald's is sponsoring the Olympics, which is raising question marks with anyone who knows anything about nutrition and health. Really? You're going to have a high-calorie, high-sodium, fast food, processed food company sponsoring the Olympics, which is supposed to be about elite athletes and peak human performance? That's a strange question. Anyway, got a lot more news coming up, including a story from WorldNet Daily and much more straight ahead here on The Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we will continue. Stay with us. All right, welcome, folks. Mike Adams filling in for Alex Jones. Today, you are on the Alex Jones channel, listening to the tip of the spear of truth-telling news in its worldwide broadcast on this Monday in July. So thank you for joining us. We've got an incredible show lined up for you. Key guests ahead. We've got a lot of evidence that has come out now showing that Merck faked its vaccine studies regarding mumps vaccine, and that according to the whistleblowers at Merck, the company has defrauded the U.S. government and other governments of hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, over the years. We've got that story coming up. We've got, what is that, a drone outside? It's like I hear something coming in. We're being grazed by weird machines out there. I think it's just actually lawn care people. No big deal. We've got Jon Rappoport coming up in that segment. Then we've got a U.S. Army medic who was court-martialed because of his religious exemption for vaccines. And he's going to be joining us by Skype in the third hour to talk about how he was threatened with even being fragged and what he had to go through, the abuse that he had to go through because he just did not want to be injected with an experimental vaccine. And so these stories tie together. We're talking about the big lie of the vaccines and then how it's happening in the military, that these people are being so pressured to undergo the vaccines. In fact, we have another story here about the military. Let me dig this out of the stack because there's just so much here. Here it is. What is this? Was it called the Medal of Honor, the False Valor Act? Is that what it was called? Anyway, the Supreme Court, at the same time that it ruled in favor of Obamacare as a tax, by the way, also ruled that it is a free speech right for any person in America to claim that they are a Medal of Honor winner, that you can't have a law that provides penalties for lying about winning the Medal of Honor. Now this, predictably, is getting a lot of veterans really angry, and I'm with them on that. I think that the Medal of Honor is something that's special, right? I mean, you have to earn that. You don't just, it's not given out at Halloween like candy. This is, and the other military medals are earned by people who put their lives on the line. And then to allow someone else to go out there and just say, oh, I won the Medal of Honor, and I won this, and I won that, and I served here, and I served there. What if those are complete lies? To allow someone to lie about that, just basically, it devalues the true value of the medal for those who really earned it, who really put their lives on the line, and all those who would have earned it had they lived through their encounters. So there you go, the Supreme Court saying that it's your free speech right to lie about the Medal of Honor. Isn't that interesting? So you don't have free speech to protest anywhere near the president. You don't have free speech to tell the truth about a nutritional supplement and how it might prevent arthritis or prevent cancer. Oh, you don't have that free speech right, but you do have the free speech right to lie about winning the Medal of Honor. Wow, where's the honor in that? See, that's the thing. That's what's happening in America. The honor is disappearing, and it's okay to lie, but you are punished for telling the truth. That's the real contradiction that is emerging in this culture of total runaway government criminality, the thuggish behavior, the complete deception, the lying, the unethical behavior, the pedophiles at the TSA, and much more. This is what's taking over our country today. But moving on with other news, natural and organic items are grabbing a bigger share in the marketplace. This is interesting because it shows that people are paying attention to what they put in their bodies. Hey, maybe they don't want to get cancer from eating a lot of pesticides. But I got a warning to tell you, my nickname is the Health Ranger. This is the area that I study the most. A lot of the so-called natural claims on products are completely bogus. Not all of them, but the word natural, just so you know, is not regulated by the FDA in any way whatsoever. So anybody can make any product, a snack chip, a soda, even with aspartame in it, and they can claim it's natural. Anybody can claim anything is natural. It's not regulated. So beware of that term. Make sure you read the ingredients and know what you're actually getting. But anyway, the natural and organic grocery sector market is growing very rapidly. Here's something that'll freak you out. You know the highly addictive pain-killing drug OxyContin? You know about this drug. You've heard about all the addicts and all the break-ins in the pharmacies of people trying to steal this drug and how